Hello from the tavern and welcome everybody to the desk. My name is Frodam, I'm joined by Brian Kibler. We just witnessed yet another 4-0. Brian, we might actually end on time tonight as Pavel takes the series 4-0 over Yulsik, eliminating Yulsik from contention of the World Championship spot as well as this tournament. What's your takeaway from that series?
I mean, Pavel just clearly he didn't want to lose. He said at the desk with Rachel, or at the interview with Rachel, he put his faith in himself for his packs and Choose Your Champion. Clearly, that was his motivation.
Yeah, I was asking, like, why is that your concern of anything? I'm pretty sure with the World Championship, when last year he could afford a pack or two, depending on how he actually does. So Pavel lives to day number 3, which he'll play in the decider match tomorrow. In the meantime, we have to go to Group D and find out who is going to be the 4th player to be joining us in the top 8 guaranteed. Let's go ahead and take a look at the matchup. SamuelTsao versus Tarei from the United States. SamuelTsao came off of a pretty grueling series, and Tarei, of course, came off a very convincing victory. What are you going to think about this head-to-head matchup here, Brian?
Well, first thing that stands out to me is that once again Tarei is choosing not to ban Pirate Warrior. His matchup against Green Sheep earlier today was the first time we saw Pirate Warrior unbanned in a matchup that Pirate Warrior was played, barring B787, where he was keeping his opponent's Pirate Warrior up to try and sweep it. So very interesting to see if Tarei's strategy that kind of goes against the grain will pay off again.
Yeah, we've seen a couple people not ban the Pirate Warrior, and Pirate Warrior's had a pretty good result, but even if it's having a good result, it's having a good result despite the fact that people are teching against it. You see some people said, yeah, sure, let Pirate Warrior through, but at the same time, Pirate Warrior still gets a win against decks that still have double weapon removal or a lot of heals. And
it'll be interesting to see not only the performance of Pirate Warrior in the matchup, given that it went through, but SamuelTsao performance earlier. He played a grueling match against a Mega Zero. That match went nearly 3 hours, and it was pretty clear that both players were suffering from fatigue toward the end. There were a few decisions that they may have, in retrospect, wish they had not made, but it'll be interesting to see if he sort of regained his composure after that ordeal.
Now let's see how the players are faring. Let's go ahead and introduce our players for this upcoming match. The first player from the United States of America, please welcome to the stage, Tarei. His opponent, hailing from Taiwan, having defeated Omega Zero, please welcome SamuelTsao.
It's go time! SamuelTsao versus Tarei.
My next opponent is SamuelTsao, and it's actually interesting because he actually beat one of my friends in the Asia Pacific prelims, and my friend told me that he's actually really good.
下一场对手是Tarei.
My next opponent is Tarei. He is a really experienced player. He is very good with the Reno decks. I hope I can learn something from him, and if possible, I hope I can beat him.
I'm probably gonna contact my friend and get some advice on how to play against him, and it's a bit scary to go up against him, but I'm feeling pretty confident.
SamuelTsao versus Tarei. Let's see what you got.
We are ready to go into the next match we have set up for everyone. It is going to be Tarei versus SamuelTsao, and both these players won in their first round. One was a little bit quicker than the other one. You mentioned before the guys as SamuelTsao played an absolutely grueling matchup versus Omega Zero, and definitely a hard opponent to beat out as he was so far ahead. And then it took it all the way to the last game.
Yeah, that entire series was just an incredible grind fest. It's going to be a real test of SamuelTsao's endurance overall, really. He's had a long break here, but just the amount of mental concentration it takes to play those long series can definitely be very, very sapping for a player. Tarei, on the other hand, is our one successful player in a leave Pirate Warrior up strategy. He has gone back to the well on that again. The difference this time is that his opponent is not returning the favor and allowing him to keep his Pirate Warrior as well.
Yeah, and when both players, as we saw in the Tarei versus Green Sheep matchup, when both players leave Pirate Warrior open, well, someone's got to get a win with it to win the series. So that's the way it works. This, as you said, might not be the case. But we are going to get into game 1, Tarei versus SamuelTsao. SamuelTsao on the Priest. Tarei going for the Warlock. What do you think of this matchup, Sol? Not one we've seen too often, I don't think, over the course of the past day or so.
It's not, no. But Reno Lock classically very, very heavily favored. If you're paying even a rudimentary amount of attention to the Hearthstone competitive scene, or if you play to a reasonable level on ladder, you probably know this already. It's just so hard for Dragon Priest, which is a deck that, you know, curves out aggressively, can get a lot of early damage done. The problem is they don't have the teeth, the bite, that final punch in terms of burst damage to be able to close out the job. That gives Reno Lock the time it needs to stabilize. But recently in Trinity Series, we did see a spate of Dragon Priest successes in this matchup. It can happen if you get the really, really aggressive start and the Reno Lock player misses their key AoE options. Those are the big cards. Yeah, Reno is great, can buy you a lot of extra time. You need to hit those big, large factor AoEs, the Shadow Flames and the Twisting Nethers alongside big Kazakus potions to clutch this out.
Yeah, and looking at the opening hands here, SamuelTsao got off to a, halfway in between opening. He's not got anything too crazy to kick off the start of this game, but going into Wimmer's Agent with a potential coin into Twilight Guardian, if he so chooses, means that he can start to build up a board that the Dragon Priest loves to do, and then it's all going to be on Tarei to see if he can respond quick enough. With the direct removal, as we can see the Shadow Bolt in hand there, would line up very well versus the Wimmer's Agent, or, as you mentioned, the big AoE, such as the Twisting Nether in the hand.
There is the option for the Doomsayer here. Doomsayer just kind of gets more and more punishing as the time goes on, and turn 3 from the Reno Lock is often the turn that you'll see this come down. It goes into the Priest turn 3 in this situation, and it means that if they are forced to Shadow Word Pain, it's hard for them to develop alongside that. It also blocks one of the most crushing minions for you, which is the Talon Priest, which is one of the things that can really consolidate a huge board presence early on. Just on the subject of Dragon Priest as a whole, though, it's a deck. When I'm coming into cast a tournament, I like to craft a lineup for myself because it helps me, get into the competitive mindset, forces me to think about what the meta will be. And in my mind, I figured Dragon Priest would actually be a fairly low win rate deck in this tournament. Looking at the statistics, that's actually coming to fruition just a little bit. 46.6% win rate for Dragon Priest specifically overall. Those matchup win rates are tempered a little bit in terms of Priest by that B787 Reno Priest debacle that we went through. But Dragon Priest still below a 50% win rate in this tournament.
Yeah, it's really tough when building a lineup for any tournament. The second you slip a little bit on what you presume the field to look like, some decks can get really punished by that. But seeing what SamuelTsao's going for, he's going to utilize the coin this turn to Shadow Word Pain, as you said, and still be able to play the Nether Spite and follow up with Twilight Guardian afterwards. So Deathwing Dragonlord, I know Kibler will probably be happy in the back watching this match, and hopefully it comes to play later on. But Tarei got a dragon of his own in the form of the Twilight Drake on 4. Brilliant minion to drop on curve versus SamuelTsao here.
Yeah, I think even from this distance, I heard a little squeal of delight coming from the back room as that Deathwing Dragonlord appeared. But yeah, SamuelTsao, since he had the coin, was actually able to Shadow Word Pain and develop in the same turn, which is the thing that you play the Doomsayer on that specific turn to make it as hard as possible to do. But still, it bought enough time for Tarei to be able to drop the big Twilight Drake here and actually dominate the board, interrupting SamuelTsao's ability to play the Talon Priest or coin a big 4-drop of his own.
Yeah, and this is just going to be difficult to deal with no health buff minions either. This Wimmer's Agent is just dead next turn if Tarei chooses to trade in. There is the Twilight Guardian coming down now. No huge surprise. There's a couple of options here, though, for Tarei. The Demon Wrath could be used to trade with the Twilight Drake as well into the Guardian, but that would put a lot of damage on the Twilight Drake itself.
It would, and he does have the opportunity to continually recycle some of the health on this Twilight Drake with the Farseer that he has, since he just drew Refreshment Vendor as well, and he's already had that Reno in his hand for a couple of turns. As I said, Dragon Priest not a deck that outputs damage too quickly, so he can use his Farseer here just to gain board control, really push some of the life onto that Drake, make it last as long as possible, because it is such a nightmare for the Priest to deal with.
Yeah, and on the other side of the board here for SamuelTsao, his hand isn't, shocking me with how powerful it is in general in terms of realistically there's no operative there yet. but there are Shadow Word deaths, which means the first 2 big threats that come out from Tarei are just dead. Easy as that, 3 mana, get off the board. It's in the forms of Mountain Giant, or anything a little bit bigger as well. It's easily going to be dealt with, and now the Talon Priest pickup is actually pretty nice. You can extend the life of this Twilight Guardian if he chooses to.
Yeah, that's a really good grab from the deck. He needed something proactive this turn. You know, Blackwing Corruptor or Draconid Operatives would have been lovely, but the Talon Priest does do the job just fine here, making that Twilight Guardian into somewhat of an impenetrable wall for Tarei to have to push through. Just generating as much power on the board as he can. Hesitation, though, from SamuelTsao. What do you think this is about?
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's one of the ideas of, I guess, you know, the Twilight Guardian is actually out of range of the Drake anyway. Does he need to buff it up? But there are so many AoEs. I think he's just taking his time. It's the first game of the series. Just maybe even reminding himself to slow down. Because that's something, you know, it's something I do a lot, actually. It's like, right, I'm going to slow down my game, take time and focus. And then, like, you know, 3 games in, I'll be like, oh, you know, playing lightning turns and like, oh, I've got to slow down again. So some players do need to keep reminding themselves to keep it at the top of their thoughts. So it might have just been that. I don't think that was too crazy that was going to come out, except for that Talon Priest.
Sure. SamuelTsao doesn't strike me as a particular slow player himself. He was involved in that marathon series, but you know, as I was looking on, it seemed to be Omega Zero that was the driving force behind how slow-paced that game was being played. But wow. That is some options. Dirty Rat is actually very effective against Reno decks to be able to pull out some key options. The Kazakus, sure, it looks shiny, but it's going to take a long time before that represents any value for the Dragon Priest deck.
And it literally looks shiny because it's gold as well.
Yes. And Blast Crystal Potion, just a strong removal, strong tempo card to have available to you in the late game, but you do already have those double Shadow Word deaths on hand, so is it Rat time?
I think it's Rat time, yeah, I kind of like it. If we were much later into the game, then Kazakus is way more of a consideration because you get to the point where, guess what? There are only single actual cards left in the deck, no duplicates. But this early, I think Dirty Rat could be huge in pulling out either, you know, combo pieces or even the Reno itself. Looks like SamuelTsao just wants answers for every single minion Tarei is going to play for the rest of the game at this point.
Yeah, what I will say about this is he's had those 2 Shadow Word deaths for a number of turns, and there has not been a target for them. What there has been is a procession of 4 attack minions on the board that he's been struggling to deal with since that Drake followed up the Doomsayer turn from Tarei. So he might just feel like he needs the utility option to try and push through some of this stuff in the near future and try and get himself some sort of board presence developed.
Yeah, and there's the option now to kill off the Operative if Tarei chooses to, but that again would involve this Demon Wrath and hurt some of his own minions as well. So it's like he's going to go for the Chandler and actually just piece together even more, you know, an army at this point of 4 attack minions, a little bit difficult to deal with. But the Operative's going to get some work done regardless here. Along with that Blast Potion, this might flip the board very quickly.
Might do. It is a significant long-term tempo loss here, using the Blast Crystal early enough that the mana reduction is a real effect. Of course, if you use it on the late game, turn 10, you go down to 9, back up to 10 the next turn, the time the turn passes to you, no big deal. But here, you want to be the proactive tempo deck for as long as you possibly can. So limiting your mana in this way is going to be a significant detriment to SamuelTsao. Powered Shield now does allow him to push through here, and there is a Bookworm target on the board if he does just want to go full mana utilization on this turn. But the board state is just getting very, very wide against him. This matchup has just not even developed in the usual way, where it's Dragon Priest being aggressive early, and then it's a big AoE turn, a big swing turn for the Reno lock. Tarei has just fought card for card since the offset and done so very successfully.
Yeah, you can just get around the issue of having to AoE the board down by just not letting your opponent have a board in the first place. Holy Nova's going to come down and help clear most of it up. The Operative's still looking healthy, although of course it does trade directly into the Bruiser with the Powered Shield, or just a heal, I guess. It's going to push him back out of range there.
Yeah, mana efficiency concerns there. I think he had 2 ways to add 2 health to this minion, so chose to use the more expensive option. Of course, using Powered Shield on that turn, he wouldn't be able to play almost anything that he drew, so might as well save it for a following turn.
Powered Shield.
Oh, Clerics as well, but it's just not a likely thing that you're going to want to drop on the board, so no great concern. Save the card draw for a rainy day.
getting the Abyssal Enforcer onto the board now for Tarei. At least it's going to open up options for SamuelTsao to actually use these deaths that have been hanging around in his hand for quite a while. And I think it's a reasonable enough target to use the death on. They've kind of been in the hand for so long. You just want to remove the tempo that Tarei has gained by using the Enforcer to clear up a lot of this board here.
Yeah, in terms of Shadow of Death threats in Tarei's deck, there is the Emperor, there's the Mountain Giant, there's this Enforcer, and then there's, Jiraxxus Infernals, which, if you're Shadow of Deathing 6/6s, the game is probably well and truly over by that point anyway. So, yeah, this is one of the premium death targets for sure. Looks like he is going to go ahead and get rid of it and gets to drop the Blackwing tech as well off the Power Word Shield. So, strong turn, actually. This is potentially what SamuelTsao needs to start developing at least some sort of hope in his eyes, but the Reno is going to shut all of this down very, very quickly.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier about, speed of gameplay being different player by player, and we can actually hear from Tarei on how long he takes to take his turn normally.
In Hearthstone, every turn you get allotted a certain amount of time, so sometimes players rush or play fast, but I make sure to use all the time I can get.
Plenty of time to hear from him as well, as he's still not finished his turn. Did start with a life tap into Leroy, and it's starting to piece together some form of burst damage, but he's a long way away from getting even close to it in terms of SamuelTsao here, and it looks like he's going to go for the Reno Jackson, just get himself back up to full health and drop a 4-attack minion on the board, quite importantly as well.
I feel like there should be an equivalent of a swear jar for casters casting priest games. Whenever you mention a 4-attack minion,
they really should.
You have to drop £1 in the jar, $1 for us American.
I was going to say, there's only me and you who would be able to do that more than likely.
Drop a quid in the jar, mate. Yeah.
It's almost too much for these guys to handle, I think. But the Reno is going to be able to put some work in. Dragonfire Potion, not exactly what SamuelTsao wants to be able to deal with this. Is this ever a Blast Crystal in your mind, just to be able to get rid of this Reno very, very easily? Edging towards 10 mana anyway, so the 1 mana sort of loss won't really hit SamuelTsao that hard anymore.
I don't really see a viable alternative. The Reno has come down, which means SamTsao needs to redevelop board presence here. He needs to consolidate and keep pushing. The only way he can realistically do that is with the Blast Crystal Potion, but it does mean he has to hold back on the Deathwing Dragonlord for at least one more turn.
Yeah, it's going to be a good moment. I'm wondering if we're going to be able to hear Kibler when this minion's played. I hope so.
I always want to hear Kibler. Almost as much as Kibler always wants to hear Kibler.
At the moment, though, for Deathwing, there is only one dragon in hand for SamuelTsao. It's not like there's a huge onslaught onto the board once he's cleared up. Although there is only a Twisting Nether to deal with him as well, so that would be quite the commitment to clear off the 12/12.
Sure would. Refreshment Vendor, more stability options from Tarei here. He has a strong utility hand, a strong hand of answers, but since this proactive start, a lot of Tarei's proactive cards have already been committed to the board. The Drakes, the Bruisers, the Faceless Shamblers, these have already been used. So he's actually struggling to build a board presence now, and there's maybe just a small window for SamuelTsao in this unfavored matchup to just maneuver a board position that Tarei has to struggle with here. Maybe force that Twisting Nether out, force one more reload. Maybe he can get there if, say, Kazakus is in the last few cards of the deck from this point.
Yeah, and this taunted up Refreshment Vendor is just getting gobbled up by this Bookworm. It's really weird that like the taunt going down onto just the one minion, but it means that the trades both have to go in and starts to pile on the high damage whilst guarding the ooze just to maybe get a better trade later on, and that can actually choose the option here. So this is going to be looks like a weird turn to only taunt up one minion, but it doesn't matter anyways. The Bookworm destroys it, so pretty straightforward for SamuelTsao, and this might be the turn where the Twisted Nether comes down, or maybe even the Hellfire.
Yeah, some sort of answer for sure, because this board is starting to get very, very big, threatening 8 damage a turn now, which is not a clock Tarei can survive on for too long. So some of his well-guarded, well-protected AoE options do have to start to come out now, and this is a luxury that Tarei has afforded himself by fighting for the board card for card so effectively for the first 6 or 7 turns, is that now he's in a position where he has a wealth of riches, even after Reno has gone, with all these AoE options.
Yeah, he can pretty much respond in any way he desires here. The Mountain Giant has been drawn, so he can just tap and still be able to play it, of course, going down to 5 mana. The only problem is there's still a lot of minions on the board. The minions actually just kill the Mountain Giant if you really want to. Maybe you're okay with that in Tarei's position here.
Yeah, Tarei could use now some of his health total to try and bait SamuelTsao into committing a little bit more here. He could go for the Mountain Giant and say, hey, if you have a Shadow of Death and you want to push here, you probably develop behind that a lot of the time, and then I just get you with Twisting Nether and crush your resources. But looks like he's going to try and preserve his health total just a little bit.
He can fully clear with the coil.
Yeah, and again, this is a luxury he's been afforded. 2 AoEs to clear 1 board, but he fought so effectively for the opening half of this game that is not a big deal to him right now.
Is SamuelTsao going to be prepared for the Dirty Rat into Deathwing play? That would be kind of hilarious. I'm not going to play Deathwing in case he Dirty Rats out of my hand.
The Deathwing Dragonlord actually doesn't do anything right now apart from being a 12-12, which I guess is a fairly significant thing to do.
I wish I could be a 12-12.
There's no additional dragons in hand to be summoned if there is a spot removal to take it out.
And the problem is it turns off 2 of the minions in his hand anyway. There'll be no dragon in hand, so Wimmer Staging and Corruptor suddenly just become pretty mediocre dudes. So not going to be able to get too much done. So although it does look a little bit appealing just to, like, as you said, just drop a 12-12 onto the board, that is so much potential lost value across multiple cards here.
Yeah, tough spot for Sam as well, because even if he went with the line of wanting to get the dragon activated cards out of his hand first, he's not really getting good value out of them anyway.
Corruptor Face,
right,
go, and that's going to be the play.
Blackwing the Face is less than ideal. It's aggressive, and that's something he does need to do right now, but yeah, I mean, the 12-12 just didn't seem too appealing. Remember, he hasn't seen either of the hard spot removals from Tarei's deck, so he was kind of expecting that huge dragon to bite the dust immediately, maybe looking for an opportunity where he does have that insurance policy.
This is nuts. Like, Dirty Rat plus Twisting Nether could just end this game right now.
It would probably end the game on the spot if he goes for it here, yeah.
Do you think it's something that would go through Tarei's mind at this point to do this? You've just seen development. You've seen that at least one of the cards on the left has been in hand literally all game.
Yes.
So it's either a very late game dragon or you know, a removal tool. It doesn't even run any late games, actually, because he would have tracked the Nether Spike Dragon, which is the one in the middle now.
He has Rag as his ultimate late game. Apart from that, he curves out at Bookworm, the one Bookworm that he's played already. But now, put yourself in Tarei's shoes now for a second. You do have to have a clean read on the remainder of the hand here to pop that Twisting Nether, because otherwise, if you don't have a clean read, you could just be expecting to see some dragons pop out of SamuelTsao's hand.
I think you do it every single time. And he's going to get rewarded. Tarei, a bit of a sigh, I think, there. He's just like, okay, no dragons. And suddenly this is a very, very, very rough spot for SamuelTsao. Deathwing gone. The minions he developed before Deathwing gone. And what's kind of funny is, although that play would have happened anyway with the Dirty Rat draw, there's potentially could have played Deathwing and then that just be Twisted Nethered on its own. And instead he has lost all of his minions. Just a Corruptor now in hand, but it's not going to be good enough without a dragon to proc its ability.
Yeah, chooses not to play the tempo 5-4 though, when he is really trying to make the push for those final points of damage post Reno Jackson. Reno already been played in this matchup, so I wonder how much value just the 5-4 on the board would have had in that spot.
Yeah, I'm wondering if he just wants to sort of show the vulnerability after that clear to Tarei, and then Tarei starts, you know, dropping minions, and then, okay, Dragonfire, and in that point, he's drawn an additional card or two, and then maybe the Corruptor's live, or he can develop the board in different ways.
Does he have time to do that, though? If he just hangs around here, then Tarei's moving towards Jiraxxus. He's moving towards Kazakus. All these huge win conditions that the Priest isn't really going to get past with all the value from Dragon Priest pretty much being expended already at this point.
It's definitely a tough call. Definitely a tough call. There's one Nether Spite, I believe, left still. We've only seen the one for Deathwing, right?
Seems right.
Yeah, so there is a chance that there could just be another gigantic dragon, you know, like Ysera and Ixia, for example, especially after seeing the Twisting Nether, plus some of the other AoE as well. So there is a chance that if SamuelTsao just, you know, chooses to start taking this game a little bit slowly, as long as he gets into that Nether Spite or another big dragon, he can actually make something work. But you're right, he's got very limited time to do so at this point. Yeah,
and this time we did see the tempo 5-4 come out, which is a little bit interesting. Maybe a small inconsistency in the line that SamuelTsao's taking here, but Soulfire was happy to discard the contents of his hand and then chose deliberately to tap last because he knew how many high-value cards were left in the remainder of his deck, the Jiraxxus and the Kazakus, as I mentioned before.
Tap into Kazakus, discard it.
Yeah.
That would have felt very bad. He did get rid of the Power Overwhelming, which then changes the calculations a little bit for SamuelTsao in terms of...
it's a big deal,
in terms of just potential damage outcome if the game goes that late. So your Drake's a reasonable pickup, but now the choice is between... This is why Dragonfire Potion isn't completely overpowered, because if it was, let's say, 5 mana, right? 6 mana is very awkward to fit into a sort of power turn, whereas if it was 5 mana, you could play as your Drake as well. Like, that would just be dumb.
Yeah, back in the day when there were lots of quality 5-mana minions available in the game, when Sludge Belcher was still at the party, you used to see Druid decks classically playing a ton of 5-drops. Not 6s and 7s, but, you know, powering up on that 5 line, because the goal of Druid is to get to 10 mana as quickly as possible. And then at 10 mana, quite often the most powerful thing you can do is play 2 5s. Yeah. But if you have these 6 and 7 mana cards, that becomes very, very difficult. They're very inflexible in terms of your mana usage.
Yeah, and here Tarei goes with the Bran Kazakus combo, and I feel like this is probably the final nail in the coffin here for this game, because the amount of value he can get, he has gone for, it looks to be 2 5-mana potions. What we've seen about 5-mana cards being pretty good. This means, because he can get 2 sets of potions, this means like he can go for 1 as an answer to anything big that may come out, or even if somehow the board is filled up a little bit by SamuelTsao, and then he can just go for the, the value town one basically, and just generate minions somehow, or card draw, or just armor at this point.
Doomsayer is in the pool. He's going to go for Summon 2 and dodges the Doomsayer. That is probably lights out in terms of board presence.
Post Dragonfire Potion, you're pretty okay with this board, even though the minions aren't the craziest ones you've ever seen come from a potion. They are probably just good enough at this point.
Twilight Guardian and second Northshire, the cards picked up for SamuelTsao. Not going to be good enough by some distance in this spot. And already staring down, what's this? 5, 10, 15, 21, 27 damage on the board here. 27 damage, including the Leroy Faceless, I should say.
27 damage on the board?
Yeah, not quite.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I know my math isn't amazing, but it doesn't sound right. Yeah, and the other potion as well is Summon a Demon and gain 7 armor.
Okay.
As well, so definitely got, the sort of safety net of some extra armor there. Not that SamuelTsao is particularly threatening lethal anytime soon.
Tarei just debating here whether he wants to lock this game up with a Faceless on the board, whether he wants to preserve it. He's going to go use it for a powerful Shadow Flame play here, I think. Yeah, double benefit here. Azure Drake, of course, the ultimate nightmare minion for Priest to deal with, and also gets the utility of that clean Shadow Flame play at the same time. Tarei in a very, very comfortable position here, but still switched on enough to be making some smart plays.
Yeah. Dragonid Operative could help out a little bit, but with key cards and just not enough time, like Twisted Nether's gone already, and also there just wouldn't be really enough time to play it anyway. It's going to be a big ask, and there's literally Siphon Soul and Jiraxxus. Are we going to see a Jiraxxus pick by a Priest from the Operative? I hope so, because it doesn't really matter which one he picks anyway. Nope. And Jiraxxus is golden, so you pick that one. Good job, SamuelTsao.
It's as good an argument as any I can put up right now, but yeah, this is just looking like game. Twilight Guardian doesn't even have Taunt since he led out with the Draconid Operative. SamuelTsao is going to give it up. That is a long and grueling game 1 going to Tarei, the North American representative.
Yeah, he generally just continues to surprise me, and I actually don't know why it's a surprise. I think it's just his quiet confidence. It's just like, yeah, I'm just pretty good at the game. I'm feeling good. He just continues to win games in every single time there's ever a Hearthstone tournament ran by Blizzard. He just appears, turns up, and gets the work done. So to find out more about Tarei, check this out. Or don't.
Well met.
My name is Tarei. I'm from Irvine, California, and I'm 25 years old. I play Hearthstone about probably 3 to 4 hours a day. When I'm not playing Hearthstone, I'm usually watching basketball or anime and things like that. My favorite snack while playing Hearthstone is probably some kind of candy like haichu. The best thing about playing in the HCT is they always make it like a once-in-a-lifetime experience, so it's always very enjoyable and everyone's always very nice.
We are ready to get into game 2 now, and Tarei already up 1-0 versus opponent SamuelTsao. You were talking about class win rates earlier on, and we saw Tarei just take the win with the Warlock. And before that, yeah, it's actually like Warlock 63, pretty much 64% win rate in Winter Championships. This is, you know, no pushover tournament. Warlock's been performing, or overperforming quite well, and, you know, that's before Tarei won this game as well. So that's an extra little notch on there. So that's looking really good. I think Warlock's 15-8 now. So that's a kind of good deck. I would bring this deck if it was me on those chairs, because I do like myself a bit of Reno Lock. But we're going to be moving into game 2 now. SamuelTsao sticking to the Priest, and Tarei moving over to the Shaman, as he's one of his classes got left to take a win with.
Yeah, mid-range Shaman from Tarei again. Wide variety of Shaman decks that have been played, but the overall class win rate, while we're on the subject of stats, 58.3% for Shaman in total. Hard to narrow that down to specific archetypes because people are bringing wildly different things. We've got aggro Shamans, we've got pure Jade mid-range, we've got Bloodlust Alakir mid-range, which is the line that Tarei is taking, but still 58. Very, very solid win rate. Good numbers that Shaman is putting up at this tournament. Still, despite perhaps surprisingly not being brought by a great deal of the competitors. Actually only the 5th or 6th most popular class overall.
Yep, asked me that a few weeks ago and I'll be like, nope, don't believe it. It'll always be #1 as far as I can tell. But yep, a few nerfs change everything. I think Spirit Claws being the main cause of that as well. But Tunnel Trog's going to come down on turn 1 for Tarei. He's feeling pretty good. And we saw this from the match we cast earlier, where you know, Tarei played this deck, and it does have the capability to get a little bit aggressive in the opening. Plays Tunnel Trog, plays Totem Golem. It can apply that early pressure and still have a great plan for the late game.
Yeah, I know everyone has their they always have it meme. You know, they always have Fiery War Axe, they always have Doomsayer, they always have the Reno on 6. Everyone has their pet one that they swear happens to them all the time. For me, it's mid-range Shaman. They always have Tunnel Trog into Totem Golem.
This shouldn't be allowed.
And it's the deck should be inconsistent in the early game. It just should be. They've cut out the Pirate package completely now, which means they are limited heavily on 1s and 2s, but it feels to me like they just get there so often in terms of a proactive board development play in the first 2 to 3 turns.
Yeah, and then you get the more intricate complaints where it's they always have Tunnel Trog into Jade Claws, into so on, so on, so on, because, again, as we mentioned, this deck has the ability to just curve out very, very quickly. SamuelTsao, again, just, I guess just liking having 2 deaths in hand no matter what he's playing against. And not really going to get too much value early on in this matchup. There's like the things from below are the ones that are the straightforward, like easy kills. Other than that, though, everything kind of flies under the radar for those 2 cards, so they might be a little bit dead in his hand for quite a while.
Choosing to J-Claws preemptively here, which is interesting. It does allow him with some proactive setups into expected minions to come down from SamuelTsao, but obviously there is just merit, since you brought up this point in the last series about weapons having charge, so you can get an extra totem on the board there in particular, and then use the J-Claws on the following turn, being able to attack immediately. The difference with J-Claws specifically is that it's a weapon that summons a minion, which you then do front load onto the board when you choose to preemptively load up the J-Claws.
Yeah, and this might be one of the games, I spoke about this earlier in Tarei's series, it didn't really come to fruition, but where you play a Jinyu Water Speaker more as a tempo card than anything else, because with Tarei being in a quite reasonable position this early, with SamuelTsao not running away with the early game, as Priest can tend to do sometimes, can probably afford to just drop one and have it as a threat, maybe even just a Shadow Word Pain target, which then reduces their opponent's turn by 2 mana effectively.
Yeah, still a tempo gain for them in the long run, especially when you factor in the overload that you're suffering when you do drop the Jinyu. But yeah, Tarei is going to have to push some sort of development here. And it's worth noting that in general, Tarei's Shaman is very anti-aggro minded. He has the double Water Speaker, he's got Feral Spirits in there, and he's playing the full 4 commonly played AoEs, 2 Storms, 2 Maelstrom Portals, which has not been common amongst many of the other Shamans so far. This is in line with his long-term strategy of leaving up Pirate Warrior. Now, he's in a different matchup right now, so how do those techs land? Jinyu Water Speaker, not a great card against Priest. It's just not very competitive with what they can do. They can play 4-mana 3/6s without overloading, and they have Shadow Word Pain that can crush you. But the Storms, very, very powerful cards against Dragon Priest.
If it had 4 attack, it'd be great.
Get a penny in the jar, there you go.
Okay, so, you know, we even saw then in obviously the huge difference between the two forms of Shaman deck we've predominantly been seeing in terms of either aggro or not at this point is Tarei chose to trade in the Tunnel Trog, the minion, and the weapon attack into the Blackwing Technician because there's just a full amount of respect for cards like Power Word Shield, Talon Priest, just making those minions almost like immortal to a certain extent. So Tarei just saying, I'm actually great with just playing the long game here. You know, I got this. I'm running the large amount of AoE, so there's potential that with the help for some spell damage, Lightning Storm and Maelstrom Portal can clear a Dragon board, you know, even though the health on the minions is normally relatively high.
Yeah, we've seen some sick spell damage turns come out
Triple spell damage
from Shamans.
Yeah.
We've seen, you know, Maelstrom Portals hitting for 3 or 4 damage, Lightning Bolts potentially connecting for 6. So the tools are there for mid-range Shaman to be able to contest this. And also, just talking about the trading game as you were, remember this is not an aggressive deck from Tarei. He's happy to go long here. There's only one Holy Nova and the one Dragonfire Potion in SamuelTsao's deck. So once he can get through those, or if one of those options is not drawn, his Bloodlust tech can threaten to just finish the game at any time, just on a board full of innocuous totems.
Yeah, and it's going to be the Nether Spite choice here. One of the rare occasions you do not see Operative just slammed on 5. What do you make of this?
I mean, I guess he's just trying to, he wants to prioritize painting this 3/6 more than likely. It's going to be one of the best targets. He could have aimed to potentially leave it around. Like, let's live in a world where you drop the 5/6. There's an argument to say your opponent snap hexes that if they have it, and then the 3/6 is left around for that Bookworm to come down, but you would be committing your only dragon to the board in that case. So this turn ticks a lot of boxes. Fantastic value Shadow Word Pain on the 3/6, and you also start the Netherspite Historian Dragon Chain going, which is you play the Historian off a dragon in your hand like Bookworm or like Operative that needs a dragon activator itself. You use that as the activator, then your Historian card becomes your new activator for the rest of the game.
Yeah, well, that would have been the exact problem, right? Operative would have come down, then Bookworm couldn't activate unless he drew one. Yep. So you really do have to be conscious. I've done it a few times where I've gone, oh yeah, this is a good play. Oh, yeah, I've got nothing to activate my key cards later on, so it can be a little bit tricky to manage sometimes. But these guys are the pros. Just a 1/5 Nether Spite challenging this totem. It's like an endless battle. No one's going to get anywhere at this point. It's just going to keep going in. They will wage war for eternity.
The very definition of purgatory. A 1/5 chipping away at a healing stream totem until the end of time.
Yeah. Scare me. And now 2 Corruptors are being available as well. As you said, the Nether Spite into Ysera means Dragon activation is not going to be a problem for SamuelTsao for quite a while in this game. But Bookworm, not a surprise. Extremely great kill. Small nod there from Tarei going, okay, yeah, it's fine that you've got Bookworm. That's a card you run, whatever. But it did require that answer, which means another turn that the Operative isn't being played. And the Operative is just a big dude. As well as being able to discover a card and generate value that way, it's a 5/6. Like, it's absolutely massive and awkward to deal with.
That card is just absurd. If that card in this expansion was given to any other class but Priest, like, it would just be savagely broken. But Priest needed the help so badly. That's the state they're in. That card is just one of the most powerful things in the game. But now, with the merits of set rotation, it's going to struggle a lot more now because it's lost so many of its dragon friends to play with that it's going to struggle to get as much value as it used to.
I remember when that card got announced, and I was like, oh, cool, you know, it seems great. Oh, it's a dragon as well?
Yeah.
This is silly. And it is silly. Silly, powerful. Jade Lightning going to come out now and clear up the Bookworm with the Jade Claws as well. A lot of Jades going onto this Bookworm. And back to the, well, not total purgatory. There is a 2/2 on the board to help.
There is. Blackwing Corruptors are looking tasty again now.
The 2/2, just the damage just gets repeatedly healed by the Priest.
Yeah.
It will go on forever.
Blackwing Corruptor is another viable option that might cause the holdback on the Operative, but no, I mean, SamuelTsao here is safe in the knowledge that there's one more Jade that will come out that will be a perfect Blackwing target. The potential sticking point is that he has 2 Blackwings in his hand, so, you know, Blackwinging the 2/2 Jade and the 3/3 Jade is potentially the best that he can do with it. But the Operative can wait no longer. It's time to start generating some value, and wow, this is strong pick. Weapons in Priest, always great utility. Jade Lightning, even when it's only summoning a 1/1, is still a solid card, but the surprise factor of Bloodlust could also be huge.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of Dragon deck-based minions hit pretty hard anyway, and then when you give them all +3 attack for a turn, that is kind of scary. SamuelTsao just going for the probably the more reasonable pick and just straightforward pick of, yeah, I just want a weapon. Clear up this 2/2.
There is, I was just about to say, there is a small merit in activating the Purgatory situation here, because now there's a 1/1 on the board, which means if Flame Tongue Totem was to be played from Tarei, the Healing Stream Totem would be able to trade into the 1/1 and then heal back up. By putting that damage on it preemptively, that cannot happen, and it reduces Tarei's options significantly, more so than just dealing 1 damage to face.
Yeah, it definitely looks funny, this style of play, the first time you see it.
Yeah.
And then when you realize you can't trade, you're like, ah, okay, you got me. So yeah, although we were joking around about the 1 damage looping infinitely, this is an actual reason for it, and we'll see if it pays off. There is no Flame Tongue Totem, of course, but it costs 1 damage. You know, it doesn't really matter too much in the long run. Now we're going to see the spell damage available. There is coin into Lightning Storm, but it's not really going to do too much to the board, even with the spell damage. There is a Flame Tongue. Worth.
Is it going to be Coin Storm here from Tarei?
What about just coin Mana Tide?
I mean, one thing I will say is make sure you know what you're doing before you play that coin. We've run into this spot 1 time already, Tarei. It looks like he's confident, though, just going to cycle the Mana Tide for a single card here. Needs to pick up some options to be able to answer the state of this board. Does have 3 of his 4 AoEs available in hand now, so he can go for a big blowout turn, but the resources from SamuelTsao still in hand are so high that he can quite easily power through all this AoE and keep going with cards to spare, more than likely.
Yeah, and he has a very, very clean kill on this Azure Drake, which is rare indeed for the Priest, of course. The Blackwing Corruptor plus the 1/1, or even the 1/5, depending on how much he values that 1/1 being on the board. He's going to help clean that up nicely. The Mana Tide is going to be a priority target as well, and I imagine SamuelTsao is just going to have to take the hit with the weapon plus the other 1 mini attack, because you don't want to leave that guy on the board.
Yeah, just considering his options, where he wants to send the value trade, potentially 1/5 into 4/1 is available to him. It does expose then the 1/5 to small increment AoE, like the Maelstrom Portal, but he also still has heal available to him, and losing your 1 attack minion to the portal is not a huge deal anyway, but in the end, does choose to just trade off the 1/1 here. And is he going to leave up the healing totem? He just refuses. I can't imagine he's going to waste a weapon charge on this healing stream, so that thing has just been trucking for so many turns now.
Yeah, really racking up the healing done stat that is being tracked for all totems across the world here.
Yeah, and there's actually a very real reason why he's leaving it up as well, because especially now with Cleric in hand, he can actually abuse that healing totem to his own benefit to draw cards. Tarei might actually be able to pinpoint a read on that and find some way to trade it off here with the Flame Tongue Totem alongside the AoE, because otherwise that could be backbreaking if SamuelTsao abuses it and uses the Nausea Cleric potentially to just draw a huge amount of cards.
Yeah, and it looks like with the hero power there from Tarei not hitting the spell damage, I wonder if he's going to say, okay, maybe 1 more turn for the big AoE time. Because I feel like he needs to do 1 big clear and hope it's enough at this point.
Yeah.
Although, Alakir, fantastic card. Totem Golem, I've heard, is pretty good as well. But in this scenario, he's kind of like really behind on board. He needs the 1 big swing turn, even if it overloads him to a certain extent, and then hopefully he can build back onto the board quicker than SamuelTsao can.
Yeah, he's just trying to find a way. He's trying to stall as many turns as he can here to hit that big spell damage turn.
Not leaving himself a lot of time, though.
He really isn't.
Tarei?
We saw the interview where he said, use every moment of time you can. It's to your benefit, and he's really taking his own words to heart right now, squeezing out every last moment of that rope to consider all his options.
Yeah, that was definitely stressful. You know, definitely take all the time you want. But when you've just played a card as the rope's about to actually burn out, I want to be a little bit quicker next time. Just in case. There is an option here now for SamuelTsao that he can actually trade the Nether Spite and the Wimmer Station into the Totem Golem, which looks slightly inefficient, but you can combo it with the Cleric and Holy Nova just to get multiple card draws this turn. You might not want to go that deep down the rabbit hole to use the Holy Nova so early, but definitely something to consider. Means you can actually just put 10 to face.
It's very true, yeah. He doesn't necessarily have to send the 2/4 in either, although it would draw in the additional cards, so there's very little harm in it. But it looks like he's going to turn down the Holy Nova here. Blackwing Corruptor actually generates even more power on the board here if he wants to go that way. Now picking up Bran as well. He might just feel like this is just enough to threaten lethal at this point. Why commit anymore?
And he has Bran Blackwing now as well for this 6 damage from hand, which is quite a lot for Priest to actually burst from hand. Probably is that the general maximum? I think it is, right? Dragon Priest.
Bran Blackwing is about all you will ever play around, realistically. There's craziness that can happen with the operative cards, obviously, but if you're playing against Dragon Priest, 7, you are probably more than likely 100% safe.
Yep, but now's the time for Tarei to roll that spell damage totem, because I'm pretty sure he needs it now. He cannot rely on this board just living another turn, because every turn he leaves the board up for SamuelTsao, or doesn't try to clear it at least. Well, it means that his opponent is just going to be able to keep stacking pressure on, and then the next turn he has to clear.
Yeah, but here's the thing. He doesn't actually have to go for the spell damage here. He can actually go for Portal, Storm, and Bolt, and try and clear the board that way. This being a much more consistent line. It's a huge overload, and it's using all of his available AoE, only 1 Storm now remaining in the deck, to just deal with that 1 board state that's in front of him, but he's not relying on that 25%er of hitting the right totem.
Yeah, this is a really funny situation here for SamuelTsao, because this feels like a good time. There's not really anything on the board. Just drop you Sarah. You've seen no hexes, though, so it's kind of a weird point this deep in the game. As you can see, halfway through the decks both players are at this point, and just no hex. So SamuelTsao's just going to go for it, and that is more than fair enough. And obviously,
ding,
hex off the top.
It's one of those situations where like a top deck looks lucky, but you can see the card counter on the right-hand side.
Literally halfway through.
He's more than halfway through his deck now, just drawing his 16th card, and that's the first of his 2 hexes that he's drawn. So he is entitled to have a hex by now.
Out.
Thanks.
No problem.
I do rely on your fail-safe at times, right?
I know you rely on me. Where would you be without me, Sol?
That's going on the compilation of out-of-context Sol quotes, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
There are many. SamuelTsao now has the Dragonfire Potion, though, so he can have a sort of an emergency switch if Tarei's board gets out of control. But a tiny 1/1 cat and an egg isn't really what I'd call out of control, so does have a lot of options to get the brand down and maybe just drop the Emerald Drake. Just used Hex and it was off the top. Obviously, if he had 2 hexes at that point, he would play the one he had off the top. But I like it. Pile on the pressure.
While we're on the subject, can we petition Blizzard so that when you summon Alleycat from random effects, since the 2 are mechanically the same, can we just get the cuter one to be the one that appears?
I think that one's okay as well. It's all preference, right? Just because you think it's the cutest doesn't mean everyone does.
You're objectively wrong.
Ah, okay, yeah. There we go. I mean, that's pretty cute to me.
Okay.
Yep. You're gonna get used to it, guys. When you cast with Sottle, somehow your opinions become wrong. Nothing is subjective anymore. Okay, so it did go for the Emerald Drake in the end, putting a lot of power onto the board, and suddenly that cat looks a little bit afraid to me.
Finally now, there is a chance for Tarei to get some value out of this Flame Tongue Totem, which was drawn on the turn all the way back when we were talking about the weird-looking trade into that Healing Totem. But now he's finally consolidated a bit of a board presence, but I think there's a pretty clear message being sent from SamuelTsao that he's sitting on removal options, probably AoE from Tarei's perspective, because he's just not doing much in terms of board commitment. And he's trying to just sit back, force Tarei to overcommit. He doesn't even have to worry about him building a board that's outside the range of Holy Nova anymore, because now he's picked up that Dragonfire Potion, which is a much more back-breaking AoE.
Yeah, that's actually kind of huge. He has so much removal available to him. Tarei does get the draw off the egg, of course. To the second Flame Tongue in. Tarei now needs to actually just push a bit of damage, because one of the problems he's got with Bloodlust, with Alakir, the great burst tools, and a lot of the time, you know, SamuelTsao can't really play around them too much, especially when the board is this small. But now, you know, there's a bit of a nod to, okay, I pushed enough damage that whether I have it or not, this is a threat and something SamuelTsao has to think about. But the board has been so mediocre for Tarei from pretty much all games. SamuelTsao's like, oh, I don't care about Bloodlust. It's basically not a card in the deck until this point.
Yeah, but this is the power of Bloodlust right now.
Yeah.
This board, there is a 1-mana token that came from Maelstrom Portal. There is a Flame Tongue, which is the only real card committed to the board. There are 2 Hero Power Totems and the 3/3 Jade, and this completely almost resource-free board is already threatening lethal off Bloodlust.
Definitely a scary moment, but the Corruptor's going to swoop in and save the day, or at least help towards that by killing off the Flame Tongue. Be interesting to see what the follow-up here is. Obviously, Bram wouldn't have really done anything extra in terms of development, and now especially Bram plus the Nether Spire, it's going to get some value for SamuelTsao going forward, since the Ysera from the first one has already been dealt with. He gets 2 more goes, and more than likely a couple more Legendary Dragons.
So even now, after SamuelTsao has addressed some of the board state, how much damage is this? It's 12 plus
20,
4,
right?
16, 20 with the Flame Tongue exactly. So, you know, something as simple as spell damage and Lightning Bolt being added alongside this would still represent lethal.
What if you Bloodlust this turn, and then save Flame Tongue for Alakir the turn after? What if?
Now we're getting spicy.
We asked the real questions here. What if?
Now you're thinking with portals. I think you may have just found the win condition. How many of the taunt minions has Tarei seen from SamuelTsao at this point? That's a big question. I don't remember.
Asking the good questions here.
I don't remember any Twilight Guardians being
think
played
so.
just yet, which could be enough to hold Tarei back from that line potentially.
But he's got to think, he's got limited resources left. This board will not survive forever.
Agreed.
Which is why I like the use of the Bloodlust. That's probably the most value it's ever going to get. There we go. It's going to use it. Does use the Flame Tongue as well to get the extra value, so it ends up adding that kind of damage anyway. Not as much you know, surprise burst, but that is still going to be enough. Alakir will clear up this game if all that comes out is a Hero Power or the Holy Nova. If both come out, then, you know, it's going to be enough. But is it going to be enough? And it will clear the board as well. So SamuelTsao can be like, okay, I'm just going to play this and be as safe as possible at this point.
Let's reassess very quickly. He chose to play the Flame Tongue Totem, which pushed 4 extra damage for him this turn. So without it, SamuelTsao would be at 8. That means with Holy Nova and Heal, he would go back up to 12, which means if the Flame Tongue Totem was held, there would only be 10 damage being pushed the next turn. So either way is not lethal. What Tarei has done here has allowed himself to draw the extra piece of damage the next turn and then squeeze that in as well, which is potentially Lightning Bolt being drawn.
He only plays 1 though, right? Was he playing 2?
He only plays 1. Has he used that 1 already?
Didn't he use it on the
Oh, no,
clear turn?
Tarei's playing 2.
Oh, he's playing 2. Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, then yes, that makes sense. It gives him the out for the Lightning Bolt if there's some kind of double heal. And whoa! Oh. Dude, what? I blinked. What just? I mean, okay, Tarei takes the game. The Flame Tongue survived the onslaught from SamuelTsao, and Tarei piecing together the damage to win that game that, frankly, for so long, he just wasn't in a position to do.
That is a crazy ending to that game. Tarei found the win condition in a seemingly unwinnable position, put himself in the spot where he gave himself an out. SamuelTsao then left that door open for him to leap through, and Tarei did it happily, now going out to a 2-0 lead.
Yeah, you know, we were talking about, so, you know, does Tarei use the Flame Tongue this turn or the next turn? He just used it both turns, and you know what? That works pretty well as well.
That'll do the job.
Yeah, absolutely crazy, and Tarei going up to a 2-0 lead over SamuelTsao. This is looking, really good. He was saying people were telling him how good SamuelTsao was. Tarei comes across as a player who actually just, respects all of his opponents. He said, well, people have told me he's good. I'm a little bit afraid because I don't know too much about him outside of what I've heard. And at the moment, doing pretty well.
Yeah, for sure. And SamuelTsao himself is fairly prodigal in nature. He hasn't been around the competitive scene that long. He hasn't been playing the game that long. I think I saw that his first even time hitting Legend is only a few months ago. So his first foray into the competitive scene now, he's picked this game up so quickly, is now hanging with some of the big boys. It looks like he has at least a question for an admin in this spot, so it might have a small delay before we get started with this game. But I understand that Tarei has moved on to his Jade Druid here. He's picked up a win with his mid-range Shaman and his Reno Lock, meaning only Jade Druid and Reno Mage left to be victorious with his Pirate Warrior being banned.
Yeah, he might be asking the question I've asked myself many times, why has Flame Tongue got 3 health? Why not 2? That's my question. Then it wouldn't have been a problem.
Cry me a river, Raven.
Always do.
Yeah.
Always do. Yeah, so, a bit of an uphill climb now for SamuelTsao. Again, just to remind everyone, this is the winner's match, so the loser of this will get knocked into lowers, not out of the tournament yet.
Correct.
Can continue to fight for the 2nd place spot in this group. 2 players from every group move on to the top 8 and then continue to play for those precious, precious top 4 spots to go to Worlds.
Yep, from Tarei's position, he is fighting away to be the first North American representative to force his way out of the group in winner's side, get a big check mark in their box to take on potentially 2 of the players that we saw qualify yesterday. And SamuelTsao has got a long road back from here, but he has already shown the ability to plow through these long series. So even if this does take a big comeback from SamuelTsao, he is well prepared to go the distance in a 7-game series.
Yeah, and he's going to choose to try and kick off this comeback with a Pirate Warrior. And we've talked on the desk, off the desk about this. Pirate Warrior is a good deck, in case you didn't know. And it seems to just plow through wins regardless of whether the matchup is deemed reasonable, bad, good. It's just an absolutely fantastic deck, and he's very, very consistent. So if Tarei can continue to get these wins against his Pirate Warrior deck, 1, that'll be very unlikely, and 2, it will mean he can just go through without banning Pirate Warrior.
Yeah, crazy.
He's the only player to do so far.
I gave the example of the faulty statistic. It's you've got a 33% success rate so far in terms of leaving Pirate Warrior up. But the caveat to that is that Tarei played Green Sheep. Both of them left Pirate Warrior up, which means, of course, one of those 2 has to be victorious. The only instance outside of that is B787's triple Reno lineup, which tried to leave Pirate Warrior up as well and was resoundingly unsuccessful in doing so.
Yep. It was definitely rough for him, but for SamuelTsao, he does have the old coin into Fireworks and no swing. Has upgrade available next turn with the combination of the South Sea Deckhand or Finley, or some combination of all those, but having an upgrade on the Warx before you swung with it is actually huge. So much damage already pretty much in the bank.
Tarei back and forth for a moment there with the living roots, then gave himself a little nod as if he decided, and then suddenly the posture fell and he's unsure again as to whether he wants to play off curve, potentially sacrifice some removal as well by getting these 1/1 tokens on the board. But since he's seen Warax hit and not Nadzos first mate, the 1/1s suddenly have a lot more value because it's the 1/3 Rusty Hook that cleans these things up so efficiently. It's not something that SamuelTsao will want to be investing a Warax charge into.
Yeah, and something to bear in mind, look at the curve in Tarei's hand. He can go Wrath next turn into Jade Blossom, into Jade Spirit, or, potentially 5-drop as well with the Blossom. So he has, a lot of cards like lined up, ready for the next few turns. So he's just taking...
Oh, boy.
Excuse me, he's just taking the chance to actually get the 1/1s on the board, and this is just... This is Pirate Warrior, everyone. But if you've seen the deck yet, it's pretty good. And it can do things like this. Silly things.
That Dread Corsair pickup was, I'm pretty sure, the best card in his deck that turn to pick up. 3/3 on the board developed for 0 alongside the upgrade on the Fiery Warax, and now a 1/3 on the board and a Mage Hero power to make quick work of these small token minions that Tarei can play. There's another 1-1 potentially coming out from the Jade Blossom here if he chooses to go down that line, or he can take some damage off the board immediately since next turn he has a 4-mana play available to him.
Yeah, this is actually a tough call because on one hand you can rat this and then continue to curve out. But if you Jade Blossom, there's an Ancient of War over there in the hand on the far left.
Yep.
And you might want to get to that a turn sooner. And if, for example, an Innovate gets drawn out, it's much more, you literally get there 1 turn quicker than you're allowed to. And that's kind of crazy. That can be what Tarei needs to defend against this kind of ridiculous opening.
It can. There's also the factor you can Wrath this turn, it takes more damage off the board, and you have the 4-mana play anyway, as I just said. But the Jade Blossom turns the 4-mana play that you do have from a Razorfen Hunter into something a little bit more powerful, since it does increase the Jade count. So he's actually sacrificing quite a lot of board presence here and the mana gain just to make sure he doesn't take too much of an early beating.
Yeah, it's just very, very difficult choice. A nod from Tarei there going, he had a 3-drop. Very, very likely at this point, the deck does run quite a few. There's an Innovate, though. There could have been an Ancient of War down this turn.
There could have been, but remember there would have been a 3-3 still on the board anyway. The South Sea Captain would have buffed it to a 4-4. So he would have been in a position where his Ancient of War would have been dealt with fairly comfortably anyway, especially alongside that South Sea deck hand that's in hand for SamuelTsao. So, it's not as cut and dry as that, as the line that he went down has changed the board state significantly as to what we're looking at now, as to what the world would be had he gone down the Ancient of War line.
Yeah, and I feel like the Jade Spirit is just the turn here because the Jade Blossom doesn't get you really anywhere any quicker. In general. So the Jade Spirit just puts more stuff onto the board as the ramp doesn't really matter because the Innovate is now in hand. So Tarei would have to draw something quite miraculous to not Innovate out the Ancient of War, but a second South Sea Captain. Look, 1 is enough. This should be a legendary. 1 is enough. But when you play 2 together, this just becomes quite... Look at this deck hand. 1 mana.
Oh, how times have changed. South Sea Captain, the card that has gone unplayed in competitive Hearthstone for so long, now is met with the words from Alexander Raven Bagley. This card should be a legendary.
I'm just amazed you pronounced my second name right. But maybe
it's only taken me 3 years to get that right.
First time I've actually ever heard that. Yeah, definitely powerful. And this, as we mentioned earlier, Pirate Warrior used to be very, very small key, and so is this, but in a much more zoo fashion. And, the Captains are one of the cards that make that possible at this point.
Yeah, Innovate War, pretty much the only turn Tarei has here to try and stick, but it's just tidied up so easily even by this board state, let alone the Fiery War Axe and the Blood Cell Cultist to go alongside it.
Bringing back bad memories.
Of?
Smashed by Pirate Warrior in the ladder every day. The memory's running from yesterday, by the way. Not too long ago at all. There's so much damage available and absolutely insane.
Yeah, it's still a little inefficient the way that he has to trade in. He didn't quite get there in terms of being able to preserve both of his captains while pushing through that. So, if you really want to look on the bright side of life, if you're Tarei, there's the small silver lining that you did at least take one of those captains off the board, but he was going to need a great deal more help than that. That is the concede going down. Pirate Warrior has got its customary win. SamuelTsao is on the board.
Yeah, it's getting to the point now where it's just like, if you don't ban Pirate Warrior, you should just have a loss next to the name at some point, although obviously the mirrored Pirates, I suppose someone's going to decide something somehow. But as you said, SamuelTsao is putting a point on the board there. 1-2 versus Tarei at the moment, getting the win with the Pirate Warrior, but that in general is probably the easiest deck to get a win with, as it is so powerful at this moment in time.
Yeah, I mean, crazy to think that. Tarei left the deck up deliberately, and yet here we are saying that it's the easiest deck to get a win with. Something is not quite right in this equation, but SamuelTsao's remaining lineup, we've told you the decks that Tarei has left to win with. It's his Jade Druid and his Reno Mage. SamuelTsao now has the Reno Lock, the Dragon Priest, and this Menagerie Rogue is what we are calling it officially, I think. The further twist on this aggro tempo style rogue that we've been seeing, just with the extra late game sustain of the Curator package to go along with the Finger package that has been so popular over the last few weeks on ladder.
Yeah, it's got Package Rogue as well. It's just got all sorts of crazy stuff in it. A true mix, and I'm not sure what my opinion on this deck is yet. I want to see it play a little bit more, see how it performs, but it's definitely a cool twist on it, and we'll see how it performs in general. SamuelTsao and Tarei, obviously, both winners of their opening matches, and they both had very tough opponents, so the decks must be doing something right.
Yeah, for sure. And Tarei himself, you know, he's such a storied competitor here, such a stark contrast, really, between the two players involved. SamuelTsao really with almost no competitive background behind him, really trying to burst on the scene now and really, you know, skipping the queue, really, in terms of, you know, grinding through to now be up against some of these big-name players. While Tarei, you talked earlier about his, you know, kind of quiet, confident personality, and I made this point before where I think that fits perfectly with his standing in the Hearthstone community. He's not a player that you hear a great deal about year-round. He doesn't show up in these other major events, these other major Hearthstone circuits. He doesn't have a big Twitter stream or a ton of Twitter followers to his name, a big Twitch stream or a ton of Twitter followers to his name. But yet, when HCT comes around, he's always there or thereabouts, always making it deep, always qualifying for championships. Such a consistent performer.
Yeah, and you know, he actually practices with the likes of Fibonacci, Tomfler, Mage, helped teach him Reno as well. So he actually practiced with some, you know, some names you will have definitely heard of if you've been hanging around the competitive Hearthstone scene at all recently. And we are moving on to game 4, of course. Tarei going for the Druid and SamuelTsao on the Warlock. We were talking earlier about the power of Warlock in this tournament so far. Got the highest win rate out of all the classes. Is it going to do it again in this matchup?
Well, it's up against Jade Druid, which can historically give the Reno Warlock a ton of problems. We talked about this matchup quite extensively the last game we cast, and, you know, talking about the issue of forcing AoE. You know, not playing around AoE, which is kind of the trap that you fall into as you start becoming a mid to high level Hearthstone player. You assume it's naturally better to play around your opponent's options. That's very much to the contrary in this matchup, where you want to force your opponent to use that AoE as early as possible, because if you wait too long, they're able to survive without using their Twisting Nether, without using their Shadow Flames. That means that they can pair it with a Jiraxxus turn, drop an Infernal in the same turn as they Twisting Nether, drop a Doomsayer in the same turn as they Twisting Nether, lock you out for a full turn. And I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but I think we saw this matchup, you know, a lesson in how to play this matchup incorrectly when we saw Doc Pone make those exact mistakes, hold back too much, being scared of AoE. So I'm sure Tarei, with the experience that he has, is going to be making big, aggressive pushes in this matchup.
Yeah, and he can make big openings as well when he coined out Wild Growth straight into Jade Blossom. One of the best feelings and best openings you can even have with this deck. Now the Jade Idol available to at least start the Jade train rolling. Probably wants something else to play next turn, but being so far ahead already in mana, he's going to be feeling pretty good there.
Yeah, side note too, he chose to keep Mulch, did Tarei, in his opening hand, because one of the ways you can get blown out of this game is that if Reno Lock gets to activate its, quote, ramp effects quicker than you, it's able to rush out huge minions earlier than it should be, Twilight Drake and Mountain Giant. If you don't have an answer to that, you can fall behind on tempo immediately and never catch up. So the Mulch Keep is not something that I think is universally agreed upon in the game, but something that Tarei clearly subscribes to.
Yeah, and Tarei subscribes to Curve as well, since he's just been able to get that Nourish on 5. I said he was looking for something to play on the 5 mana turn outside the Jade Idol. Nourish is fantastic, using it for card draw as opposed to ramp. He's probably in no rush at this point and just wants a much larger hand because he's used ramp cards earlier, which made his hand that much smaller, and straight into Aya as well. If he chooses to play it, doesn't really get too many huge Jades on the board, but skips a few turns in the cycle play for the Jade plan.
Yeah, I'm not sure you want to be spending your entire turn just mulching this 4-9. It looks like it's probably Aya Blackpaw here. Only a 2-2 and a 3-3 as the 2 golems that are going to be summoned, but still good enough to be able to contest this Twilight Drake, and still goes a long way to ramping up your Jade count in the long run.
Yeah, this is actually huge from Tarei. Everything seemed to have lined up very, very well. He has so many options now after that Nourish into some removal in terms of swipe and Feral Rage. So looking pretty good so far. SamuelTsao does have plenty of options for himself, and Reno is just the refill capacity there. How early is too early a Kazakus in this matchup? Because a lot of the time you need to judge how the game is actually going before you decide on what you think you need from the potion.
Yeah, I don't think there's necessarily such a thing as too early. I think there's definitely such a thing as too late with Kazakus. I think you can wait too long, try and force yourself into the position of brand Kazakus, 2 big high-value 10-mana potions, nuke the Jade board twice with those 2 10s. That very rarely works. Quite often, as you said, you have to be adaptable with your potion, look for opportunities to take a tempo potion, you know, summon a 5/5, give your minions +4, summon a 5/5, deal 4 to the board, get a full swing that way. So I think, you know, whenever you've got a window for Kazakus where you don't have a more proactive play immediately, that's the turn you're most likely to see it come down.
Sounds pretty good to me. Aya did survive the turn. It's a clean way to deal with this board here for Tarei.
There isn't one, really. Even with the large amount of mana that he has available, there's not really a nice answer that he can use here without having to trade off the Aya as well, which would reduce his power on board significantly. So he is just going to go Ancient of War here. Probably holds reasonable expectation of this biting the dust to either Siphon Soul or Blast Crystal Potion. We see, of course, there's both in hand for SamuelTsao. But still, making the aggressive push nice and early here. As I said, making SamuelTsao have it, making him have the removals, making him have the Reno. And I'm sure from Tarei, we will see him follow this line through. As long as he actually picks up the minions to support this strategy, which he's a little bit short of right now, we'll see him make him have the AoE sooner rather than later as well.
Yeah, we'll see him double swipe face next turn just to really pile on that pressure. But no, you're right, does need some kind of minion. There is the Jade Idol still in the hand.
Yeah.
I think, like, for example, like Gadget Zam would be okay in the next turn or so to start cycling through some cards, as well to help him out here, because he is very spell heavy at this point. But those spells are pretty good. Everything he's got is quite heavy removal, so it's not looking too bad for Tarei here. The heal going off SamuelTsao mainly, going back up to 26. Means that Reno's probably not going to be needed for quite a while yet.
Yep, full clear though. If SamuelTsao wants it, he can choose to try and assert dominance here with the face attack. He is going to do so. Jade Spirit is probably the best draw here to go alongside a swipe to clear this up. Doesn't get it. Does get the Nourish, though, which he can play alongside a Feral Rage to achieve the same thing. But if Tarei ends up now trading into this Twilight Drake, SamuelTsao has found himself some free damage there by going face, which is an important skill that a lot of players do often miss. But seeing those opportunities where your opponent is going to trade back into you the next turn anyway.
Yeah, just 4 free damage, effectively. Tarei's going to kick off with a Nourish this turn. Continue to cycle. And there's some minions he's after. It's your Drake, another Ancient of War. Going to help him out here. Do you think he trades, or do you think he decides to start playing chicken? Just go face himself? It's like, no, you trade.
It's tough. I mean, these are minions, yeah, but they're not the Jades that he's really looking for. This Jade Idol is going to make a 4/4 now, start contesting the board more heavily. He's going to use Wild Growth as well to push the mana count right the way up, give him maximum options for the next turn. This means Drake Swipe and all kinds of madness is available to him to try and answer any board state that comes out, but his deck is not being too kind to him right now in terms of being able to ramp up that Jade count super quick. Yes, he's at a 4/4, but the majority of that work, or half the work, has been done by Aya Blackpaw alone.
Yeah, next turn, though, it does mean he can Azure Drake into potentially Mulch or some other removal. So he gets 2 more goes at drawing a Jade Activator. So, you know, the Jade Spirit or the Behemoths, of course, would be pretty nice draws for the following turns. For now, even, you know, he chose to go face and start playing chicken here, because suddenly the Twilight Drake will probably want to trade into the 4/4 now because it's so clean.
And so it does, and there is the Behemoth, so things are going to start getting messy very, very quickly now for SamuelTsao. No Twisting Nether in hand just yet. Does have the Fellfire Potion, which is another card that we haven't talked about yet. Yeah. Not an automatic inclusion in Reno Lock, but a useful card to push you through the mid-game turns in this kind of matchup. Allow you to preserve that Twisting Nether for longer, which, as I mentioned, is a huge, huge tool to be able to clutch out the matchup. Yeah,
I'll be very surprised if this Behemoth doesn't get played this turn. Just to, again, just get the Jades cooking. And even use a combination of some of the cheaper removal here to help clear off. I mean, the 3-3 could just go into Twilight Drake. I'm just wondering whether, you know, how far away is this Wrath from just being used pretty soon, just because he doesn't really need the cycle too much. He's already double Nourish cycled, and he's going to be drawing into those continued Jade Clouds very soon, simply because there's just not much left in the deck.
Yeah, you always need the cycle in Jade Druid, though. Even if you do get down to the position where you're running out of cards, as long as that Jade Idol is left, you know, sometimes if you're really deep into a heavy control matchup, you can deliberately save the Auctioneer or Fandral combination to go with the Jade Idols, and it's actually then to your benefit to be out of cards, because you can literally refill the board every single turn. So no amount of cycle is too much cycle for Jade Druid. So if there is ever an opportunity to cycle Wrath, you better believe Tarei will take it.
Yeah, SamuelTsao going into the Mountain Giant now, or at least it has the option to play the Mountain Giant and just put a big dude on the board, and finally the Mulch Keep will pay off to be able to just get rid of that huge threat of a minion pretty quick. Looks like SamuelTsao's going to go for it. Maybe even followed up by a Blast Crystal Potion here. This is actually really tough. Blast Crystal does get rid of a minion, but doesn't achieve too much. So yeah, looks like it's going to be Kazakus. Going to go for a 10 Potion. It's a very slow matchup, so 10 Potion is often needed, especially because you can get 6 damage to all minions, as we can see on the right there, which is, again, almost like, you know, another slightly stronger Fellfire to do even more damage to the AoE board. I imagine he's picked it. I think we'll find out in just a second exactly what potion that was.
Yeah, if I was a betting man, that is summon an 8/8 and deal 6 to all minions. But hopefully we will get a look from our observer in the near future. But until then, there you go. Summon an 8/8 and deal 6. Big tempo swing potion for SamuelTsao.
It's actually deal 6 and summon an 8/8. So.
Be quiet, Raven.
That is needing to know for sequencing. Thank you. You do not summon an 8/8 and deal 6 to it. That wouldn't be a good choice. I can be quiet if you want, though, because I've just been solo cast for you.
It's probably not the best thing to instruct a professional Hearthstone caster to do. Just stop saying words. All right, fair enough. So now multiple AoE options in hand for SamuelTsao. That Fellfire Potion can get him through one turn. The 10 mana potion can get him through another. Twisting Nether still in the deck somewhere to be the ultimate kill switch. And he has time to wait for even for a Doomsayer, or to potentially get a Jiraxxus down before that Twisting Nether and follow it up with an Infernal Hero Power. But none of those options actually line up too well against the board right now. You may talk.
Thank you. I was worried about how long I had to keep that up, because you might start enjoying it. So, yeah, that would have been rough. So, yeah, this is... I think the match is actually... the game, sorry, is actually teetering on the edge here for both players. If there's one big clear that can come out for SamuelTsao, it's going to be really, really huge. And he has so many options. Sergeant Sally, just in case you've not seen this card, when it dies, it does that damage to the board based on its attack. And Power Overwhelming combo, this is something that a few players thought this would be very powerful.
Yeah.
We can see that it is powerful in this instance when drawn from additional minion. Not a card you want to put in your deck, but look at that. Slight smile from Tarei. It's like, I just got Sergeant Salad in Winter Championships.
That is a top meme. You know when the player who just got smashed by something like that is smiling himself.
Like, okay, you win this round. Although double Azure Drake is a great way to follow up. Continue to cycle. Now the two innovates that normally lose value a little bit as the game goes on, actually still quite valuable in this instance. Look at how sort of high cost the hand is with the Behemoth. It still means that there's like Behemoth double swipe available if he really needs it in one turn for a big swing turn back onto the board.
This is a very, very threatening board. 2 Drakes in play do represent a massive amount of damage when you factor in the amount of spell damage that comes behind it as well. But it's not a huge resource investment for Tarei to trade for one of these AoEs in hand for SamuelTsao. There you go, Demon Wrath and Abyssal Enforcer coming out. So Tarei now slowly chewing his way through all these AoE options. He won't know quite how many he has to push through, but he knows that there is a Kazakus Potion in hand. He knows Fellfire and Twisting Nether are both still in the deck as well. But he just needs to keep rationing his hand correctly so there's enough threats in play to force those kind of answers, but enough resources in hand to be able to reload afterwards.
Yeah, and I do really like which tools SamuelTsao chose to use last turn. The 2 one high cost and 1 low cost but low damage AoEs means he's got them out of the way and they got value. There's no point using the 10 mana Kazakus Potion when he didn't need to deal 6. So now he has the deal 6, still has the Fellfire Potion to deal 5 across the board as well. And also whilst developing a minion onto the board. So really good heads-up choice there from SamuelTsao, and it's all back on Tarei now to say more Jades where that came from.
Yeah, and there you see it. Only 9 cards remaining in his deck at the time, and a much more efficient way to deal with the 6/6 if he maximized the damage on the Wrath. He still cycled it. There's still those big important cards, the Auctioneer, the Fandral, still remaining in his deck, which can allow him to make some disgusting turns in combination with the cheap spells in his deck.
Yeah, and also an interesting decision now for SamuelTsao is how he plays out this turn. There is 8 power on the board, but only across 2 minions.
Yeah.
And they're both like weird shape. They're not even shaped, so like the 2/3 isn't a threat on its own. But if you actually choose to, oh wow, okay, he's chosen to clear the board with the potion, develop an 8/8, and then rely on the 8/8 being big enough to either threaten Tarei or trade with the next few minions that are coming up.
Did you just body shame Jade Spirit?
Did I?
Called her a weird shape.
Yeah. Woo-hoo. Yeah, so this 8/8 is actually looking pretty good. SamuelTsao so far. Not a lot that Tarei can really do to deal with this without, I would feel, kind of overcommitting considering there's a Jade Behemoth he can just dump in the way.
The 8/8 is a problem though. Over the long term, the mulch has already been used. Only 1 copy of mulch, I believe, just double checking now. Yes, indeed, 1 copy of mulch in Tarei's Jade Druid list, which means that 8/8 is a serious problem because it's got out ahead of the Jade curve. An 8/8 on board when it's a 7/7 being summoned, meaning that it represents a significant amount of board control over the next couple of turns if he doesn't want to deal with it immediately.
Yeah, I think he's got the ability to deal with it across those 2 turns, though. He's got multiple removal tools.
Sure.
So if the 8/8 trades into the Behemoth, then suddenly, I mean, look at all the options. He's dropped a Fell Rage now for the armor, but look, he has Living Roots, Wrath, and Swipe. So he's got plenty of options to be able to deal with it at, maybe even next turn if you can continue to draw Jades. Looks like Tarei's just shouting an admin. I'm sure one's going to come over and see what's up.
Yeah, based on his gestures, just some sort of issue with his sound, it looks like. But yeah, SamuelTsao was spent a moment looking up there, but he needs to focus. As long as he's still connected to the game and happily functioning, he should just play as normal. And that looks like he has now refocused on the game. 8/8 takes care of the Behemoth. Blast Crystal now taking care of the 7/7, and SamuelTsao is competitive on the board.
Yep, so we are just going to be working out, as you saw the tech there on the screen. We're just finding out what's wrong with Tarei. Okay, so we'll have an update on that shortly. Looks like the game's continuing though, so nothing too crazy.
Auctioneer been drawn now for Tarei. I'm hoping he can refocus on the game now. I believe we're being told it's some kind of issue with the white noise in the noise excluding headphones that is failing him right now. But of course the game is ongoing. That is priority number 1. He needs to refocus and make sure he is pushing through this.
Okay, so we're gonna mix up the style a little bit
yeah.
since there is an issue with the headset. So we're not going to talk anything too much to give away anything just in case some sound leaks through while we fix the issue with the headsets.
Yeah, there is a very real chance that the players can now hear the what we are casting about. So we will not reveal any information that is not being readily available to the players here. But the Auctioneer turn for Tarei is ongoing. And looks like multiple copies of Jade Idol are being shuffled. 8-8 summoned onto the board, and it looks like we have the go-ahead. All problems are fixed, but this, the whole time, was the kind of disgusting turn that I was talking about Tarei being capable of if he got the Auctioneer train going. The board state has been generated while refilling the amount of resources in the remainder of his deck. Jade Idols are plenty off that one turn, and that again is why he continued to cycle so aggressively even though his deck was running low on cards.
Yeah, it's looking really, really good for him so far. And, you know, with the Fandral as well, you just Fandral one Jade Idol and suddenly, yeah, I'm good for quite a while, yeah, as it will develop a Jade onto the board and shuffle 3 more into the deck as well. So as you said, pretty much going infinite at this point, and it's really on SamuelTsao to pull something out of the bag. But, you know, can he actually do this, even though there's Twisting Nether, Foulfire Potion, Jiraxxus? Is this even realistically doable at this point, Sol?
I mean, Twisting Nether is there, but I've beaten this point to death. The good Twisting Nethers for the Reno Lock players, they have a follow-up. You're already in Jiraxxus form, you Twisting Nether, you jam a 6-6. You Twisting Nether, you follow it up with the Doomsayer, you buy your complete full turn of tempo that way. SamuelTsao does not have that. He does now.
Liar!
But 2 mana and 1 card too late, which means that the threat of the board state is going to remain, but this is smart play. Reno comes down, removes the lethal out for Tarei, and means that now he has to continue to potentially develop into this board state, and now on the next turn, the Twisting Nether Doomsayer is available to SamuelTsao.
Yeah, and something to bear in mind as well, without the Auctioneer on the board now, or in the future, because all the cards are gone, when you Jade Idol into the deck, going forward, because of the lack of card draw, you will only be drawing 1 a turn.
Correct.
And every couple of turns you have to shuffle, you have to shuffle one back, you know, the set back into the deck, right? So there's basically only going to be, you know, 1 Jade Idol per turn at this point for the late game for Tarei. So he's really going to have to get as much value as possible, and he's going to start to piece together a plan on how he needs to deal with this Twisting Nether Doomsayer, because he knows it's there.
He does. He is choosing to commit just that little bit more. He is now, as you said, going infinite with the Jade Idols, but he does have to be extremely careful with his resource rationing here. This is already plenty. Doesn't need to commit more than this. The Fandral is still a huge tool for him in the late game, and this already more than enough to commit to the Twisting Nether. Dirty Rat could potentially be a small distraction, but I'm sure we're going to see the Doomsayer line come down. I've talked about it extensively all game long. There is the Doomsayer. There is the 1 turn of breathing room for SamuelTsao, and he has as many Jade Idols as he wants for the rest of the game, theoretically, so he can even choose to just tick his Jade count here by spending 1 of these.
Oh yeah, why not? I guess the only, I mean, he can generate 2 Jades guaranteed next turn because he has the Jade Spirit.
Yeah.
So I wonder if, is there any benefit to keep it so then he can create 3 Jades that turn?
So not play that Jade Idol. Next turn he draws another Jade Idol.
And then go Jade Spirit, Jade Idol, Jade Idol.
It's kind of overkill at that point anyway, right? The amount of power that you are generating is just kind of insane at that point.
I'm okay with overkill, so sure. Yeah, it's just, you know you can infinitely shuffle anyway, especially with the Fandral combination. So, yeah, just something to consider, definitely. It's probably not going to change too much of the outcome at this point.
Oh, look, a Jade Idol.
You know what? We're really good. We can just guess every card that's going to be drawn for the whole rest of this game.
Yeah. Look at our glorious new technology. The card counter is going to hopefully keep track. There you go. Boosted straight back up to 7. His deck will continue to grow for as long as this Fandral sticks around on the board. And now, does SamuelTsao have a way to prevent this? Multiple taunt options is, in fact, a very big deal. Dirty Rat won't pull anything here. So a multitude of taunt minions available on this turn. He can go Dirty Rat, second-rate Bruiser, Hero Power, taunt the Hero Power with the Sun Fury Protector as well. Has other minion Bran alongside that as well if he wants to use the taunts differently. So he can wall out, and the line is fairly linear here. If SamuelTsao has been keeping perfect track, this game is solvable. There's 1 card left. that isn't a Jade Idol, and it's a Living Roots. So he knows exactly what he has to play around.
Yeah, this will be interesting, and cool to see whether an additional big Jade would actually have helped with this kind of situation with the multi-taunt outcome, because the Jade would be a 13-13 if he kept it, right?
Yeah.
So he would have had a 13-13 on top of this board, which would have won, right? He would have killed him through the 3 taunts. Oh, no, he wouldn't. No, he would not if he plays 3. Okay.
Double taunt and doesn't get time to attack. Thought about that turn just a little bit too long. So now the Living Roots can potentially take care of one of these taunts. Can he get the 11 or the 12 to connect to the face here? Fandral, the Roots, and a Hero Power. Oh, Fandral and the Roots can take care of the 5, but then 2 and the Hero Power can't take care of the 4. The 6 gets taken care of by one of the big guys either way. He's just a little bit short here.
Yeah. But extra damage would have been nice. Tarei still in a relatively comfortable position at this point. There's the 13-13. Guess what? Next turn is going to be another Jade Idol drawn, which will be a 14-14 if you know how +1/+1 works.
So now Tarei considering the attacks into this 6-6, which are kind of a big deal. Fellfire Potion is that one big AoE that has not been seen yet. He also has to plan for the potential combination of Fellfire Potion and Hellfire at the same time and plan out his numbers here. 6 is a great break point, as is 7, so I like the way that he's traded there. Of course, Fellfire Potion only dealing the 5 in that spot. If he'd have traded the other way, his 11 attack Jade Golem would have been at lower health. So this is probably the correct way to do this, but this is coming right down to the wire. But it looks like the crushing power of the Infinite Jade engine is going to get him there in the end.
Yeah, only 18 damage available?
2, 7, 10, 18 by my count, yeah.
Oh, 20, the minion. Is it 20 with the minion, or have I just making that up?
5 from the minion and the weapon, 5 more from the Fellfire Potion.
Oh, yeah.
2 Soulfires is 18.
Yep. I'm making things up.
Yes. It happens.
Yeah, so close, but no cigar at this point. Fellfire Potion's only going to push him closer to the damage, though.
He can now, by playing the Dirty Rat, making sure this doesn't get discarded, he can now Soulfire away the 12-1 and mean that the 13-8 has to go into this Dirty Rat, and that prevents lethal for one more turn yet again. The second Soulfire being discarded, though, massively impacts his ability to race in this situation, and the race is his only win condition.
Yeah, exactly, and there's just not quite enough damage. Even the, Hero Power helping out with additional plus armor, and this is just going to be game next turn. What? Are there even any outs at this point?
Leroy Jenkins still not good enough. Only the 12 damage. The Jade engine just got there in the end, but Tarei recognized it. We talked about the importance of this matchup and how, yes, it's very, very strong for you, but you have to recognize it and play it well. And I think Tarei absolutely did that. He pushed as hard as he could with the resources that he had available, and then even in the late game, he recognized what his win condition was, and that was activating that Gadgetzan Auctioneer Infinite Jade Golem engine in the late game, and that gave him so many resources to push through. Jade Idol is a much maligned card, but it's actually fairly rare that you do see the Infinite engine go off like that in high-level play. Normally, Jade Druid just loses control of the board, or they just get there with Jades in the 8-8-9-9 region. That's already good enough to end the game. Very, very rare for a player to set up that situation so expertly in which the Infinite engine does go off.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome for Tarei so far. He is looking to be one game away from winning the series and moving on. But before we get into the next game, we can find a little bit more out about Tarei.
I believe my biggest strength as a player is the ability to be patient and always stay humble. I'm not really a superstitious person, but I am religious. I usually pray before every match, just for God to give me wisdom and stay focused, stay calm. Hearthstone's very psychological, so if your mindset isn't very good, then you might play worse. I think my psychological state and my actual gameplay ability are all better than the majority.
Tarei's proven consistently again and again throughout his entire career.
I've been pretty close to winning it all before, but I've always kind of fell short. I want to become one of the very best.
Tarei's quickly approaching Lord Jaraxxus, and there's Reno Jackson. Tarei is going to the Bahamas.
The Bahamas, it's a very big tournament. There's a lot on the line. Being able to qualify for BlizzCon, and there's also a lot of money and fame involved. Anything short of winning would be a slight disappointment.
He's a time-tested player, and he's been through the World Championships.
With the level of experience I have and all the time I've put into the game, I believe I'm ready to prove myself. I want to win first and prove to everyone that I am the great player that I think I am.
Always great to hear more from Tarei. Find a little bit more about the player who's been so consistently performing in the Hearthstone Championship Tour across the years. And we can actually check out, that game went on for quite a while.
It did.
And we can check out one of the key moments in that game from Game 4. You can see a little bit of damage missed from SamuelTsao, which could have opened up lethal opportunities later on.
Yeah, I called this out when it happened, but then it slipped my mind in the later turns. He ropes out on this turn and then misses the opportunity to swing with the weapon. Whether he would have chosen to go into the 2-3 or to go face here is up for debate, but then fast forward to the later turns when we were talking about that race situation, we were counting the damage with the Fellfire Potion, the double Soulfire, all these combinations. That 3 damage, if he'd have had time to decide, first and foremost, to swing face and then follow through with it, that extra 3 damage could have ended the game in his favor.
Yeah, we were counting the damage from hand, and it was very, very close, and 3 would have been a number that made that happen for him. So if SamuelTsao's realized that moment and the potential outcome of the game, if he'd actually managed to get the attack in, he needs to make sure that doesn't happen again. He is on a match point, or Tarei's on match point, and he can potentially lose this series because of that.
Yeah, final word on that before we move on to this this crucial game. He may have chosen to attack that 2-3 because that was relevant in terms of trying to make sure that the big minions weren't able to bypass the taunts, using that living roots to push through. But if he had decided to go for the face, we could be at a level game now as opposed to Tarei of the USA being sitting pretty ready to qualify through to the top 8 stage of the Hearthstone Winter Championships.
Yeah, Tarei kicking this one off on the Mage, the last deck he has left to get a win with in this series. SamuelTsao going for the Dragon Priest, and this matchup I feel is a really good one for the Priest. You can actually just pile on minions that are too big for the Mage to deal with. Mage isn't the Reno lock. You don't have hard AoEs. You don't have Twisting Nether. You don't have huge Shadow Flames. You have Flame Strike. You have Blizzard. Flame Strike only does 4. Blizzard does 2. That is often actually just not enough to deal with a Dragon board.
Yeah, a great deal of the time, the number that you want to be doing against Dragon Priest is 6. And there is only one card that does that efficiently in Mage's whole deck, which is the Fireball. There's the Roaring Torch that can come out that can deal 6 again, but even Fireland's Portal, when it comes down in the late game, if it's lining up against a Twilight Guardian, a Draconid Operative, it's just not good enough to get the job done. Secondary to that, not only can Dragon Priest stick boards that Reno Mage struggle to deal with, they can also just go card for card and beyond in terms of absolute raw value as we see a turn 2 Dirty Rat just ripped from Tarei.
That's all I've got for you on this one. This is really tough. I don't know what to think about the Dirty Rat. That could have gone very, very wrong. Even if Draconid Operative, you lose the Discover, sure. You have a 5/6 for free.
I was about to make that argument. Operative arguably is a card you would keep in this matchup. The point that I was starting to make is that Dragon Priest can out-tempo Reno Mage. It can also go long and out-value Reno Mage. That is very, very possible if they get the Bran engine going on their value cards. So you can deny that by trying to pull a Draconid Operative, which they would arguably keep in their hand for that game plan. But then when you stop and think about that, how good is it really to just get them to jam a 5/6 on the board in the early game?
Very, in my Deep analysis there,
Okay.
very good indeed. And SamuelTsao as well was kind of fortunate enough to just have another 3-drop anyway, a pretty good one in the form of the Talon Priest. So it's not as if he got, you know, the 3-drop pulled and then his turn was heal anyway, so it kind of counteracted itself in some form. It still would have been a benefit for SamuelTsao, of course, but, you know, this is kind of huge. He's just been able to pile on even more pressure than he's allowed. But the rat is still on the board, so it's doing a job of at least softening up some of these big dragon minions we were talking about.
Yeah, what I will say is I do appreciate the creativity in a spot like this. Like, this is an unfavorable matchup for Tarei. I think if Reno Mage is going to win this matchup through classical means, it's the burn-heavy version that's going to do that. Tarei doesn't have that. No Pyroblast in his deck. Does have the Ink Master, but not the big burn combo to go alongside it. So what that means is that conventional methods, you know, outlasting your opponent or outvaluing your opponent, neither of those is really going to work in this matchup. That means sometimes you have to flip the table and find something new, and Tarei maybe just felt that was jamming the wrap.
I mean, if he pulled a Nether Spite, he's going to be feeling pretty good.
Sick.
He's going to be feeling pretty good, because sometimes you do, well, a lot of the time actually in the control matchups, you really do need those 2 Nether Spites to go off. If you don't, you can run out of resources against this deck.
Absolutely. Now, Tarei is kind of deep in the tank here, deep in thought, trying to find his way through here. Azure Drake, probably just the highest quality minion he has in his deck in terms of the Priest matchup. So he'll want to play that in a situation where it gets as much value as possible. And on this board, not so much. There is actually a semi-value trade available going into it. Yes, the Wormrest agent would go down, but the 3/5 on the Blackwing tech would be able to pick up a value trade for SamuelTsao in this spot.
Yeah, definitely a tough turn. I mean, maybe this one's just an Ice Barrier. Just take the extra health, effectively just kind of buy a turn.
You're just giving up so much tempo straight away, though. I'm not sure if I can get myself off the Coin Drake this turn, even though it does get dealt with so cleanly.
Okay.
Wow. Bran would be an interesting play here.
No,
yeah.
going to go for the Coin Drake. Going to go for the regular play.
Yeah, I think Tarei's mindset lined up almost perfectly with mine that turn. He went everywhere to try and find a turn that wasn't playing the Drake because he wanted to get stronger value out of this. In the end, there is just nothing anywhere near in terms of challenging this Drake in terms of quality of play, so he just had to go with it to try and ensure he's not falling too far behind.
Yeah, he went for the Dirty Rat earlier on, now he just needs a solid play.
Yep.
So just gone for the Azure Drake. Now the Powered Shield on the Blackwing tech means that SamuelTsao's probably just okay with this Wormrest agent dying at this point.
Heal or Bran? Now is the debate for SamuelTsao. Bran would allow him to just go really hard, real quick next turn with that Draconid Operative if it were to stick around, but it's not a matchup he necessarily needs to be in a rush for, so he can just hold on and take that guaranteed value later on turn 8 or beyond.
It is a really tough one, isn't it? Because the moment the Bran lives, you're like, okay.
All hell breaks loose.
Yeah, you're like, game. But it is probably, as you said, not a matchup you need to rush, so there's no need to at this point. Just heals on the Blackwing Technician, a 3/5, still awkward to deal with, and if a tech eats a Fireball, you're feeling pretty good about that as well.
Yeah. We were talking backstage earlier, we were watching a Tempo Mage versus Dragon Priest unfold, and we were saying Fireball comes down on the first big minion a Dragon Priest plays, then the second Fireball comes down on another big minion, maybe the Operative, then suddenly you're out of Fireballs and Tempo Mage just can't really compete with Dragon Priest anymore. That scenario is the same for Reno Mage, except you have half as many answers because you're a damn Reno deck. So it's just a rotten spot to be in, absolutely. There's so many stats able to be generated by Dragon Priest.
Yeah, and you see even the nod to that with the ping there. Just going to ping the tech, try and get its health a little bit lower so that it kind of lines up with some more easy removal if a heal isn't played this turn. And now we can see Bran Nether Spite come out as an option. Doesn't have to be played this turn. Can work it in the turn after as well. So it's either Draconid Operative, so just go down, or go all the way to the Value Town. Go into the Nether Spite. What's the first one? Yet another Deathwing Dragonlord is available.
It's Nefarian.
I was going to say, but I do like Nefarian here. It's a very, very, very good card. And great against Reno decks where you want as much value as possible.
Yeah, settle in for a long one, boys. This could be over very, very quickly, or it could take a very, very long time. And really, it depends on the quality of Tarei's answers, because SamuelTsao has already set himself up into a position where he can more or less go infinite value just with the few cards that he's drawn already. Dragon Priest, scary, terrifying amount of value in total in this deck if you get everything to line up. Almost impossible for any other deck to compete on pure value with Dragon Priest.
Yeah, we're on about how powerful Operative is earlier on. That it's just crazily powerful. It was really powerful as well when you can play 3. So that second Operative you see in the hand is not the one from the second one from the deck. It's the one from Netherspire.
Only 3, you say?
Yeah, it could be more.
It could be more. Yeah.
So, and then also you can just, copy your opponent's stuff, like Antonidas if you really want. Even Water Elemental is just a great card in general here.
Tony's definitely a reasonable pickup here. There is Shadow of Death to pair with it. You can fit in late game. There's a second Power Word Shield remaining, I believe, that he can use to generate as well. And it does give him a potential win condition in terms of pushing aggressive burst damage. It's also just yet another value engine if you want to look at it that way. Just adding more cards to your hand. Fireballs don't have to be game-ending damage. They don't have to be burst. They can just be used as fantastic removal tools, and in that sense, just yet more value appearing in the hand of SamuelTsao.
Yeah, with the way the board's looking here, do you think Tarei just has to have a rough turn and go Bran into Courier? Try and find something big to make an impact into this game, because the problem here is, well, Blizzard just does nothing to a large extent, and doesn't really set up anything because you don't have a Flame Strike either. I think something big needs to come out for this Courier, or Tarei's game could be over. Doesn't appear to see. We've got the Discover options, but we'll find out as soon as they come into the hand, no doubt. See if we can get that fixed. There's going to be one Arcane Intellect, going to help him draw into more of his deck, of course, and try and find those answers. But as you said earlier, Saul, the Reno deck only has one-ofs in those answers anyway. So once the board's clear once, Tarei better hope SamuelTsao doesn't have a way to fill it up again.
Yeah, I don't know what his second pick is going to end up being here. Just running into a little bit of a spectator bug, but hopefully it's going to show up very, very soon. Power Word Tentacles being the choice.
Those options must have been terrible.
Yeah, that can't have been anything good. Tarei needed something in the neighborhood of 2 Kazakai that turn. Multiple Kazakuses from his brand, Cabal Courier, if he was going to have any chance of coming in.
Oh,
that's just the same choice with an Arcane Blast in it. Antonidas and Water Elemental were in his previous Operative pick as well.
So I need to see the Antonidas pick for the main reason that you just played Tempo Antonidas twice in a game of Hearthstone. You just drop it, you're like, if you kill it, I've got another one, it's fine. That would be truly, truly great. Oh, SamuelTsao, new favorite player confirmed. Casual Golden Antonidas. When you have more Antonidas in your deck than the Mage player does. This is looking rough, Saul. I'm not going to lie to anyone.
Yeah.
For Tarei, of course.
Tarei.
It's looking great for Samuel.
Tarei may not know it yet. He probably does, but he is sentenced for death in the slowest manner possible. He is going to get ground to death in this position. Remember the scene in Deadpool with the Zamboni? It's like you're going to die in about 5 minutes.
Driving really slowly.
Pretty much the situation of inevitability that we're in right now.
I think the real play here was Tarei doing Power Word Tentacles on one of SamuelTsao's minions just to end the game quicker at this point, as there were just... okay, we may be overdoing this. There is still small chances. However small...
Name them.
No. Stop it. Blizzard... Tarei can buy time. Blizzard is going to stall a turn's worth of attacks from all these minions, but the health is just so high. Kazakus is nowhere in sight, so there's no polymorph all option to try and hard reset the board and then keep on top of it with maybe a summon minions as well. SamuelTsao's just playing 2 of Antonidas in his deck at this point, just because why not? This is just escalating to ludicrous levels of Dragon Priest. There's 2 Antonidas, 3 Operatives. Nefarian's just chilling, he's not even needed at this point.
All right, there's the Kazakas, but Bran was already used on that desperation courier play, which means...
You can't Blizzard Kazakas.
Nope.
One more mana, and, you know, there's an option at least.
It's
you know what I mean?
something,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. One more mana, Blizzard Kazakas, 10 mana potion to polymorph summon. Summon, I don't know, some 8 Ragnaros or something to clear the board and finish the game out. I don't know. It's definitely a big ask. We do get the Discover back.
Nope, it's gone again. No, it's back. All right, good. 6 to all. Yeah,
6 to all. That's an option. Next turn, he can more or less clear the board. And it looks like the Polymorph's going to preemptively come down on the Antonidas, as that is the one minion he couldn't guarantee a clear on with his 6 damage to all.
Bookworm picked up is a clean answer, but if he does suspect that the 10 mana potion is coming, then Nefarian could very possibly be the play here, because the 10 mana potion would not answer this huge dragon. So if he was to play Nefarian here, he sends 3 damage into the Kazakas to trade it out, and then he gets to push how much damage remaining? 12 damage to face, which means the remaining 8/8 dragon on the board is a lethal setup through the Kazakas AoE
He's going
potion.
for it.
It's just correct in my opinion.
Very clean play from SamuelTsao in
absolutely.
these games. Very, very clean. Very, very solid. Polymorph Boar means that he's got an additional small form of burst damage from hand, as long as there's a minion on his side of the board to combine it with.
It's also 2 spells which can fit in alongside Archmage Antonidas. Not both at the same time, but it's 2 options that he can potentially play, although Shatter might be a little bit problematic to get played.
Yeah, you can Shatter his... Can you target your own minion with Shatter? I think you can, right?
How's he freezing it in the first place?
I know, that's what Tarei's for.
Ah, good call.
Yeah. Just to use it, you can shatter the sheep. Oh no, because it'll die. Is there any way you can freeze it without Runs Frost Nova, right?
I think so, yeah. I can check for you. There is indeed a Frost Nova in this deck, yes.
Tarei goes for the ping on the sheep. This is the second sheep today. Tarei's bullied out of a game.
Oh. Too close to home, literally. Our compatriot, Green Sheep, was vanquished in Tarei's opening round game to get himself into this position. That was the series where both Pirate Warriors were left alive and kicking, and it was Tarei that emerged victorious and is now right on the line of getting himself out of this group and into the top 8 into the Winter Championships. But he is a long, long way behind in this particular game, has been for some time.
Yeah, there is 20 damage available just on the board for SamuelTsao. An additional 4 from hand with the Polymorph Boar, but let's be honest, you could just Antonidas, play the boar, do the additional damage after the sheep's hit, and then you have at least 1 fireball plus Antonidas to do something with, and your whole board is alive as well.
Yeah, then you're leaving these 2 minions up, and I think SamuelTsao, like you said, very cleanly, very deliberately played around the 6 damage AoE potion last turn. So if he was to commit everything to face and leave these minions in play, then suddenly these can do the small chunks that Tarei would need to be able to AoE down such a big board, even with Antonidas and Nefarian out of range of the potion by default. So I would expect potentially some kind of respect being given here.
Yeah, he could have actually bookwormed the 3/6, Polymorph Boar the Reno, and used the 2/1 attack minions to kill the boar. Very clean kill. You leave the big guys on the board anyway in the form of the all the dragons, basically.
Actually, sorry, I didn't count that this play pushes him all the way down to 6 health. This means still that the 10 mana potion cannot be played because the single fireball is a straight lethal setup.
That's what I said earlier on.
Really?
He even did it on the sheep.
Yeah, he did.
We're in sync. Okay, well there's... Finally, Tarei gets his own Antonidas, so it can stop being stolen or mimicked from his deck at least. But there is pretty much no outs. Tarei, of course, knows that SamuelTsao has a fireball in hand because that's just how Antonidas works. And very, very dominant performance from SamuelTsao in that game. He is getting 1 more victory onto the board. It's now 2-3 versus Tarei, but that was definitely one of the worst matchups Tarei can play Reno Mage into.
That was a massacre. That was
brutal.
A very polite and slow and gentlemanly massacre. That wasn't Pirate Warrior running you over in 4 or 5 turns, but that was as one-sided as one of those Pirate Warrior games in its own way.
Yeah, and SamuelTsao got his Rogue and Warlock left. But we've also got coming up after this another great match coming up later today. We can check out some of the players that are coming up. Who have we got coming up, Saul?
Oh, you've put me on the spot.
Yep.
I have
Do you not
no
know?
idea. No.
Okay, we'll find out. So, sorry, what decks has SamuelTsao got left?
SamuelTsao is looking at this Menagerie Rogue that we've been dealing with, having just one with the Dragon Priest. Reno Lock is the last remaining deck that he has, and of course, Tarei sat just on that Reno Mage that he has left to win with, being in the 3-2 clean.
Welcome to paradise, the Bahamas. There's more tales to tell. It's Omega Zero. It's Green Sheep!
Yeah, we have the players in the playroom. Some of the players have been knocked out. Dr. J and Green Sheep just prepping for his match. Nyria are just, oh, he's there with Dr. J. Sheep Green, apparently. They're looking very happy about this. Look at this synchronization. Good work, guys. I'm pretty impressed. Pretty impressed. I saw your dancing the other night, Dr. J, so I know you can work in tandem with teammates. That's looking pretty good. And you know, going for Green Sheep in the match we've got coming up a little bit later on.
Yeah, Green Sheep was the one player I was sure was involved.
Yeah,
I couldn't remember who his opponent was, and I didn't want to be accused of bias of only remembering Green Sheep because he was our country mate in EU. But of course, Omega Zero, the representative from China, the most well-known and well-respected player from China, is his opponent. But back on the matter at hand, SamuelTsao is trying to grind through this comeback. Already one marathon series under his belt against Omega Zero himself, and now he's going to have to go through a very slow deck multiple times. He's going to have to push through this Reno Mage over and over again if he wants to come out of this game as our 4-3 victor and as our winner's side qualifier from this group.
Yeah, I genuinely think SamuelTsao may already have more time on the stage than many other HCT players at this point through the combination of his first series and this one as well. So it's going to be this Rogue. I'm very excited to see how this pans out. A lot of mixed reactions to this deck in general and how it performs, as it is one of the probably the newest build in terms of across all classes at the moment. Is there a newer deck?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an old build cycled back round to be new again, because this is the kind of thing that was being experimented with very, very early on when the Finger package was being tried. Then it got streamlined into the more aggressive thing, and now it's kind of come back round to this all over again. So yeah, if you're not familiar with this particular deck that SamuelTsao's running, it is a bit of a specimen. It's got the Finger the Flying Star alongside the aggressive Murloc package that we have come to know, love, or possibly hate, depending on where your allegiance is. Very common on ladder these days. Alongside that, it has the stealth package, if you like, as well. Silent Knights, Shadow Senseis, Stranglethorn Tigers, stealth minions, ways to buff them and leverage them as well. And to round it all off, you've got Curator thrown in there as well. That can hit your Beast in the Stranglethorn Tiger, it can hit your Murlocs in Finger or any of the others and allow you to have so much more sustain than some of the other purely aggressive builds that we've seen.
Yeah, pretty much Swiss Army Knife Rogue at this point. Got
Good
an
name.
answer
Yeah,
to
like
potentially anything, or you might pull out the wrong one and have an answer to nothing that you need. So starting off here, Acolyte of Pain coming down for Tarei, going to get that cycle started early. Combining it with the Arcane Intellect potentially in the next turn means that he's going to have no trouble going deep into his deck this game.
Yep. Silent Knight is a great drop into this Acolyte, though. Despite the 2-2, of course, the stealth stops it from being farmed by the Acolyte for value, and now with the immediate buff follow-up, he can start to get a lot of damage going. The problem, though, is that Divine Shield can get minimum value trading into the Acolyte, because Acolyte only dealing 1 damage. That's the least value a shield is ever going to get. On the counter side of that, though, Mage always has ping available, so your Divine Shields are never really going to get too much value unless you get the initiative attack out of stealth with it from the Silent Knight, which is where Silent Knight excels and why it's, again, one of those cards that was considered unplayable for a very, very long time is now appearing in a top-tier competitive deck.
Yeah, it just it's so sort of niche that it's got to find a very specific spot in a deck. We've seen it from, you know, Egg Paladin, from Jambe, for example. Right. You know, he found a spot for it because, again, it's sort of half untargetable nature with the combination of Divine Shield and the stealth means it's very difficult to remove, so it kind of dies on your terms more often than not and not on your opponent's, which is a very, very powerful tool to have.
I have a proposal. Would you like to hear my proposal?
I thought you were already married.
I have a secondary proposal.
Oh, okay, it's not what I was thinking about. Never mind. Okay, go.
Coin, Cold Blood, Edwin. How do we feel?
Let me consider it. I need time.
Okay.
It's not a decision I can just agree to straight away. I mean, why not at this point?
All right, I'll argue against my own point.
So okay, I'll go through the benefits. One, this is just a good target for the stealth buff. Okay, you know, you don't have tons of stealth minions available, so the Shadow Sense is going to get the value. And having the 4/4 Divine Shield means he can remove this Ooze or the Acolyte, his choice, or just go face if he really wants a force response from Tarei. The benefit for the Van Cleave is it's just so much pressure that can throw your opponent off the sort of slow and steady plan it looks like they want to take with this Acolyte self-ping.
Yeah, here's the downside that leaps out to me about it as well, is that you're jamming the 2 Cold Bloods on this Silent Knight, which, you know, attacks face, but still only has 2 health. So after the ping happens, that removes the Divine Shield. The Ooze is just there to trade into it. You've lost a lot of repetitive potential damage from that Cold Blood. You do have that huge Edwin in play, though, to back it up. But, you know, if it was a questing adventurer situation where it's Cold Blood on a questing, and the questing is growing out of removal at the same time, that would be a very, very different story. But I think it was something definitely worth looking at. It's probably a play that went through SamuelTsao mind. But I think it's, you know, somewhere in the experimental but rubbish pile for now. Let's just move on.
Just like many of my deck creations.
Yes.
Some of them are good, though. Once in a blue moon.
Can Bloodhoof Hunter.
Look, that's what I'm taking. That one's actually pretty good.
It's just not.
It is. My win rate proved otherwise. But back to this game and this cool rogue deck. This is looking pretty good, actually. The Silent Knight just around still. It's looking great. And this looks like a Cold Blood turn.
It does indeed. Now
the second the Azure Drake wasn't dropped, it's like, Cold Blood, charge minions.
Yeah, and now, suddenly, the Cold Blood Edwin combination is starting to look a lot more powerful because now there isn't that direct answer on the board to be able to deal with it. The coin comes out, the Edwin comes down, 12 damage getting pushed. This is a much better time to go for this play. For the reasons I stated, there's not that Ooze hanging around anymore that can take care of this. Tarei is in a world of trouble right now.
Completely agree. Ice Block does mean he has a kind of, you know, can buy one turn. Flame Strike next turn is going to clear up a lot of this damage, but you need, in Tarei now, he needs to actually think about how he deals with this Van Cleave. It's all good and well buying a turn, it's all good and well with a Flame Strike, but at this moment in time, Van Cleave will just kill him anyway. Does he have to go for Courier or Intellect?
Intellect into Frost Nova should be higher percentage than finding something clean from Cabal Courier. So that is the line that immediately jumps to me. But Ice Block buys the guaranteed turn as well, of course. So there are multiple options. But either way, if you're blocking, I feel like you Intellect first anyway. Then if you don't hit the Nova, you have Ice Block to follow up. But no, it's going to be Dirty Wrap.
And that is not going to be enough to stop the Ice Block being procced, especially because with the addition of the deckhand, the hero power, and the patches, plus the deckhand already on board, the Dirty Rat was getting killed anyway, and the Van Cleave and the Silent Knight would stick to the board and do enough damage to proc the block. Now Finger is available, but how often do you even like playing Finger into a turn 7 for a mage? Actually, are you even bothered? If they pirate,
it's a much better question.
I do get there eventually. Yeah, with the Flame Strike, of course, as we were discussing before. Yeah, Finger dies. Van Cleave doesn't know, and that's just going to be game if Flame Strike comes out here. So SamuelTsao making this game a bit of a quick one with that crazy, crazy burst turn and Silent Knight. Who would have thought it?
Yeah, he is going to choose in the end to dagger, though, just to be able to punch through this Dirty Rat just a little bit more efficiently. If the Flame Strike were to come down here, just that 10-10 alone is enough to get the job done. South Sea Deckhand can be pushed here to pop the block at 1, but that's not hugely relevant either, although...
Blizzard
Frost Nova, yeah, that's actually a big deal. Did SamuelTsao actually sequence this turn correctly? I feel like the deckhand has hit face here, right? So I feel like the prop could have been made at a lower total regardless. But either way, keeping the deckhand back now allows him to proc from 3 in this situation. It would have to be the line that you went down first and foremost, which is Blizzard the board and Ice Lance the face to prevent it. And Tarei is not playing Ice Lance in his particular build of Reno Mage.
So, let's go to a Game 7.
Let's do it. It seems like casters left, right, and center have been saying that over and over again in this tournament. All of these players so very evenly matched. And what's crazy is that the deck lists that the players are bringing are not. Everyone has brought a different lineup from every other player in the tournament, and yet we're still seeing series after series go right the way down to the wire.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. I would say with the difference, or exception, should I say, of B787's lineup, which was sort of very one way, very one-way built in terms of a very heavy control with 3 Reno decks. Everyone else has just brought a truly mixed bag of decks. We saw Green Sheep bring in an aggro lineup with Jade Druid, one of the most potentially late-game decks there is, and probably ever will be with the Jade mechanic. So it's kind of crazy that with a best-of-7 format with this many decks, such a variety of classes, of decks, and of even card choices within the same archetype.
Yeah, but this is it all on the line now in the battle of the Reno decks. Reno Mage coming up against Reno Lock. SamuelTsao up against Tarei for the bragging rights and for the couple of days of relative comfort as they get their work done early, qualifying out of their group in winners, sitting pretty in that top 8, waiting to find out who their opponent will be in that crucial one more game needed afterwards to qualify for the World Championship.
Yeah, that's the important part. Just in case you're not 100% aware of how the tournament is going to work, 2 players from each group go through to a top 8 bracket, and then top 4 go to the World Championships, and that is the true prize. And they have to win 1 more match if they qualify into top 8, 1 more match to get top 4. They're going to be playing one of the 4 players, the first 4 players this year to head to World Championships. And that's going to be absolutely huge. But first, one of these guys has to win. Tarei versus SamuelTsao, the final game in this series. It's going to be SamuelTsao on the Warlock as his final deck, and Tarei on the Mage. Reno on Reno.
It's going to be a series of 1 more. It's 1 more game for one of these players to make it to that top 8 spot, and then it's 1 more series, 1 more match from there to get them through to the Hearthstone World Championships. Reno on Reno. Tarei has hit his Kazakus nice and early, but SamuelTsao has the Bran in hand, so both of them have a key value tool available early. Tarei has the Reno in hand as well to protect from any funny business in terms of burst damage from SamuelTsao. He is running the combo in his Reno list, the Power Overwhelming, almost a dead giveaway in hand, but if there is a combo piece that you play without playing the others, it is the Power Overwhelming. But just to confirm, the full Leroy Faceless PO combo for 20 damage from hand is available to SamuelTsao.
Yeah, and you were talking about the Bran and the Kazakas, both in SamuelTsao and Tarei's hand respectively. I always find it really interesting to see when the players choose to use these cards.
Yeah.
You do not always put that combo together, right? You don't go, well, this is a combo, that's all I can use these cards with in this game or in this matchup. And choosing when you decide that either with the Bran you can get value from different cards. Peddler, for example, maybe not the key one, but an example. You might want the instant value to progress the game to a point where you don't need the Bran Kazakus potions, and vice versa for the Kazakus. Kazakus potion early might get you far enough ahead that you didn't need to wait for the Bran anyway. So I'll be definitely keeping an eye on that during this game. It's going to be cool to see who waits longer? You know, it's sort of who calls the other one's bluff at this point.
Yeah, slow turns developing now in the early game. Soulfire is an option, but is Soulfire a card you want to have in your hand when your hand is so high value right now? Reno in your hand, Dirty Rat, as you were talking about, a key tool as well to disrupt your opponent's hand, and Bram Bronzebeard alongside that. Does take the Soulfire, it is just by far the highest card available, the highest value card available, but will have to be cautious with it in the future, hoping not to line up the discards against some of these power turns.
Yeah, talked about it not too long ago. Tarei just dropping the Kazakus on curve, wants some instant value, and outside of that, he would have been coining out an Azure Drake, which died to the minions on board anyway.
He's going for the 5-mana potion, understanding he is not the value deck in this situation. He needs to set up some kind of burn win condition to close out this game. It's the one weakness, strangely, of a Reno Warlock, is that you can actually pressure their life total. Sounds bizarre to say about a Reno deck. Reno, the single most powerful healing effect we've ever seen in the game, but Reno Lock, due to the nature of several of its cards damaging its own life, its own hero power removing health from it, you can get the pressure on and sort out a burst damage finish, and that is what Tarei is going for here, trying to tempo out early, protecting his Kazakus from Dirty Rat, as you were talking about, just making sure he steals initiative as fast as possible.
Yeah, and you know, his options there were okay, but he didn't get the direct damage, which is actually really nice. He got the Polymorph, a minion, summon 2 friendly minions. That's so great to remove the big annoyances, even if Reno comes down, to just like sort of tempo polymorph it, summon 2 more minions and carry on with the game. Seems pretty good, but I in this position, as you said, you kind of want an extra fireball to a certain extent and just more damage to be able to threaten them with. Although at the moment, it is a threat for SamuelTsao because he doesn't know what that potion is.
Yes.
So he has to at least consider it in his future plays, as that could be 5 damage, it could be the 8 damage, you know, if he's gone late game and gone 10 mana as well. And you said he is running Inkmaster Solia, so definitely something to consider going forward for SamuelTsao.
Yeah, not too often these days that you see the Inkmaster Solia being used without the Pyroblast package. Normally that is a signal of that Pyroblast, Ice Lance, surprise burst damage package that you see. Pyroblast, Frostbolt, Ice Lance all being able to pair together if you use Solia to discount the Pyroblast to 0. But this is just Solia as a tempo tool, and being able to be used alongside high-value cards like Firelands Portal or Flame Strike, or, as you said, an expensive Kazakus potion.
Yeah, we saw, it was early today, we saw the Solia Firelands Portal combo.
Yes.
Kind of crazy, just get like a 5/5 and then a 5-drop, plus more than likely remove a minion from the board as well on your opponent's side. So a really huge tempo swing. As you said, you know, you can actually just combo with the potion as well, but still options, but less chances of going for the Freeze Mage style with this Reno Mage.
Now here's an interesting situation. Tarei has to be very cautious now about every minion he plays, because I believe, if I've kept track correctly, Kazakus is the only minion that has been played so far from his side of the board, which means if he just plays one more key minion over the next couple of turns, he can force it to be revived with that revive potion that he has. Let's say that key minion is Antonidas. Suddenly, that means he has a 5-mana Antonidas in his hand, which can represent huge combo tools for him later in the game. Dirty Rat can ruin everything, though! That's the Acolyte of Pain! That is going to weaken the Kazakus potion significantly, because that is now a minion that is going to enter the graveyard to be revived.
Yeah, that would have been a pretty cool play if you could just be like, yep, Antonidas, 2 minions, 2 summons, let's go. That would have been pretty huge, especially because the coin could be available if he managed to hold off for a turn and play a normal Antonidas and then have the 5 mana, as you said, into coin. Would have been pretty huge, but looks like that's not the play now. It's going to be the Polymorph and the Twilight Drake. And there is still a good chance that the Antonidas gets summoned, because there is only 3 minions and you get 2 goes at the summon, so the odds are in your favor.
And here's the frustration. Tarei's hand actually played out down that line pretty effectively. He had the Polymorph that turn as a decent turn to take care of the Twilight Drake. He had Arcane Intellect to play on a following turn as something else to do. Then potentially the Antonidas, if you compare it with the Arcane Blast immediately, that kind of thing. His hand was very capable of making that dream happen. But speaking of making dreams happen, that is Solia coming into hand, paired right away with those 2 huge 7-mana spells. And it looks like once again, for the second time in as many days at least, we are seeing the Inkmaster Firelands Portal pairing go together, and that is just a pit fighter.
Yeah, that's why Solia is played sometimes in lists without Pyroblast. That is just a huge turn. And SamuelTsao, although has many, many options because he's been pretty much just ahead all game at this point, can deal with this board, but he has to spend his turn dealing with this board and not continuing under pressure.
And now, I mean, now when we're talking about the graveyard, about the revival pool, this has diluted heavily if he wants to go away from that, you know, that big one-off guaranteed revival, but it's putting quality minions into the pool.
Yeah, I'll take those.
Right.
They'll be okay.
There is a 3-3, a 5-5, a 5-6, and the Acolyte of Pain in the pool after these minions die. So that is still a very, very solid tempo play if he does want to go with that 5-mana potion in the near future.
Yeah, not too bad at all. The awkward thing, or something Tarei might be trying to do before he gets to that potion, is actually find the turn where the Warlock, SamuelTsao's Warlock, actually just plays a single minion, a single big dude, because the combination with those Summon 2 is the Polymorph.
Yeah. Dirty Rat looking like it's going to connect face right now, and it's going to be Hellfire Demon Wrath just to tidy this board up, which means a free turn being seeded back to Tarei in this position. Bran picked up. Azure Drake can be used here. It could be a card draw turn for Tarei if he wants to. His Kazakus is already used, which is the main tool to go along with that Bran Bronzebeard. Antonidas still in hand with the coin still available, and Tarei's mana pool just steadily growing means that the opportunity for a big combo turn with Antonidas is growing exponentially as time goes on. Cabal Courier now picked up as well, so his value side of his hand is looking promising as well.
Yeah, and this is the exact situation we just talked about in terms of these are the kind of turns where there's realistically just one big minion going to be played to try and battle for the board, maybe a minion, a taunt activator as well. So this potion is getting edging more and more towards the point where this potion can be very, very impactful. Felfire Potion is live for SamuelTsao, and this will clear off the Bran and the Azure Drake. He's going to take 5 and also not be able to develop any minions, which just says, okay, the minions are cleared, but back to you, Tarei. I hope you don't have anything. And Tarei's got just as many cards available to him as SamuelTsao has, and he's going for it.
Tarei nodding. I think he's feeling comfortable. It looks like he's seeing a plan come together before his eyes here.
Antonidas, coin, intellect?
Means that you run into overdraw issues, yeah. Coin and the AI would replace themselves. There's already, what? There's already 10 cards in hand, right?
Oh, yeah.
So the coin and the intellect would replace themselves with fireballs, and then 2 more cards would try to be drawn. You'd get seriously deep into card burn territory.
That hand management.
Yep.
Although it's maybe a good problem to have in a sort of value-based matchup at least.
Tarei really just trying to burn some cards out of his hand right now. He just played some of the only things that weren't super situational or didn't replace themselves in his hand, just trying to make room now for this big fireball turn from Antonidas. I believe the Arcane Blast is still available in Tarei's deck, as well as the Forbidden Flame. So those are both tools that can come along and create now additional fireballs for Tarei.
Yeah, this is kind of nuts, actually. SamuelTsao looked to be in quite a strong position early on, but Tarei seems to have just wrestled control of the game here. And, we can see there's Reno, there's Draxus, of course. There's multiple good options for SamuelTsao, but there's so much potential value for Tarei. He has still got the Courier as well, which can truly open up some great options for him, discovering the multi-class cards as well. So it's looking kind of crazy. Arcane Intellect going to help him dig deeper into the deck, and even just use his potion to can trade into one of these minions that's going to be played from SamuelTsao this turn, and then just use the potion for a quick clear on another and continue to develop the board.
SamuelTsao healing himself back up to 20. He knows that there's no great threat of burn damage just yet. He hasn't seen the Antonidas turn happen. He's seen Fireland's Portal be used already. He's seen Solia be used already, so he knows the burn potential in a single turn is currently very limited for Tarei, so he's not too scared about burst combinations just yet. But Tarei still...
This is nice.
Desperately scrambling to just get some cards out of his hand, so any time he can use one of these cards for even relative value, you're probably going to see him take it.
Well, also as well, your opponents just answered your minion turn by just healing up and not even presenting minions that directly challenge minions that are alive. So if you just Flame Strike ping, you're like, okay, try again, friend. And in the meantime, I'm dealing 7, which pushes SamuelTsao down to 13, which is generally a nod to Slam Arena if you have it. Then Tarei just drops Alexstrasza, and all suddenly this game becomes very, very close once again. And Tarei will be looking to close out this one. The Mountain Giant is actually a huge pickup here, which means he can play Mountain Giant into Reno and actually present a big minion of his own to be able to deal with this. But then there's the Potion.
Yeah, the Potion can finally start bearing fruit here. The trade on the Reno is relatively straightforward for Tarei, and then the 8/8 will run into the Polymorph, and the board presence will hopefully, from Tarei's perspective, grow out of control. Some high-quality minions are in that pool right now, alongside the smaller, the 3/3 Kazakus and that Acolyte of Pain. Acolyte of Pain could actually be a problem if it gets resummoned now.
Yep. Well, what's crazy as well is, if the Potion is played this turn, with the trades, you actually, depending on the minions summoned, just set up lethal from Alexstrasza if all the minions aren't dealt with in the following turn.
Good point.
And you can preemptively set this up. It'll be very difficult, and it's not going to be a Reno this turn. SamuelTsao feeling safe on 13.
I mean,
he knows there's no Pyro.
He's well within his rights to feel safe at 13. If he wants to get greedy with that Reno Jackson, this is perfectly reasonable.
Oof, look at this. Okay. Acolyte Pain, let's go. Nope, it's a pretty good board.
It's looking solid. There is currently 12 power in play. The Cabal Courier makes it 14, and this is a great number because it actually conceals the Alexstrasza lethal. If now this board is left unchecked on the following turn, he can Alexstrasza coin ping to finish the game in response to a Reno.
Tarei, if you play mind games in this game and win, I'm going to be very impressed.
That does not seem like a big enough incentive.
Are you kidding?
Do you know what is a big enough incentive, though?
No, don't even say that you're going to be very impressed.
No, I'm just going to say it could get him out of this group and into the top 8 of the Hearthstone Winter Championships. And
I'll agree with you on that one.
More important,
I'll agree with you on that one.
Than your approval.
Couldn't agree more. The Doomsayer combined with the Twisted Nether, that old combo, is going to try and help SamuelTsao just buy himself a turn, maybe go onto the Jiraxxus, knowing that there's no Pyroblast available means that the kill isn't actually quite as simple as it normally is in terms of when you play Jiraxxus against a Reno Mage.
Yeah.
Might feel just a little bit safer, and then you can just like drop Reno on curve, or more realistically, set up for some kind of burst damage, because there is 12 damage, depending on how the discards go, out of hand from SamuelTsao if he sticks a minion to the board.
Oh, that Emperor is enormous right now. The 5/5 body. Tarei does not care one little bit. He wants this hand discounted right now. Thank you very much. Antonidas, coin in hand, and now severely discounted spells that he can play out.
Yeah, this is kind of crazy, and this is still close, though, because Leroy being picked up from SamuelTsao, combined with 2 Soulfires and a Power Overwhelming, is a lot of damage there. Going to be 18 from hand, as long as the Soulfire doesn't discard the other Soulfire, of course. But Tarei's on 24, so there needs to be 6 damage out of somewhere, and there is no real way to get that really. You know, if he plays Reno, well, Reno only does 4. SamuelTsao's going for Jiraxxus, clearly a play around Alexstrasza.
This
start piling on the pressure.
this
sets up lethal.
Could actually get very messy.
Yeah,
it
this
does
just sets
set
up
up lethal for SamuelTsao, but Tarei's response here might be to set up lethal himself. He knows the Emperor has not been played by SamuelTsao. He knows these cards aren't discounted. He's not accounting for this amount of damage coming back the other way.
Coin into Reno. Oh, this turn can change everything and potentially decide who qualifies into the top 8.
Ooze is good enough as well. If he fits the Ooze in here, that is enough to deny the lethal, but he has to make some defensive play this turn. He does it. Has enough damage from hand on the next turn to deal exactly 15. Imp Gang Boss drawn. No way to gain armor above the 15. Fireball, Fireball, Forgotten Torch in hand for Tarei for the total of 10 mana is going to end this game regardless of what SamuelTsao does on this turn.
What a crazy way to end this series between these two players, both playing very, very, very well. And this game has just been nutty. Mind games did come out as well, so full respect, Tarei. good work. It was only Nim Gang Boss, I wanted something a little bit crazy, but, you know, he played it, and that's all that matters. This setup for lethal was clutch, and that Ooze pretty much saved the day, because it was either that or the Reno. If neither of those were played, SamuelTsao would take the win this turn. If the Soulfires didn't discard.
Oh yeah, that was always the biggest.
I'm not glossing over the fact that Soulfire could discard Soulfire. Of course, it's a possibility, but one he can deal with. And with that, Tarei is going to be the player who moves on into top 8 for the Americas region. Looking great. SamuelTsao, another hard-fought long series against a great opponent, just didn't quite make it there this time. He's going to be knocked down into the lower bracket, but Tarei quietly confident, and you can't really argue with him. Victory over Green Sheep in the first match of his group. Victory over SamuelTsao, who's been a very impressive player from what we've seen from him so far in this tournament. You can see there the group winner for Group D, the group of death, is Tarei.
No, the group of doom.
Oh, sorry, the group of doom. There we go, it's Tarei. And decider match will happen later on with SamuelTsao. But Tarei is standing by with Rachel for some words.
Dang, Tarei, that was a serious match there. You nearly got reverse swept. So tell me, what are you thinking after you've won this huge matchup against Samuel?
I'm just so relieved that I can go and eat dinner and rest.
I guess I shouldn't tell you that all the restaurants are closed now, but you know what? I'm sure you can find something. Room service is still there for you. The hour is late, but the Hearthstone is still coming at you. And I want to know, you are our first qualifier from North America to go right into the top 8. The audience is here to support you. How does it feel?
USA, USA.
Well, that's a great response. You brought a lot of energy back into the room, so congratulations to you, Tarei. You can go get that dinner now, get your rest, and get prepared for the top 8. We have one more match coming up for you tonight here from the Bahamas, so let's take it back to the caster's desk.
Thanks a lot, Rachel. This has been an awesome series to cast. Oh my God. Just that one game was so intense. Never mind the rest of them. We had plenty of highs and lows for both players across the series. What really stuck out for you, Sol?
I mean, I just want to reflect on the day as a whole, as I think our duties have come to the end, at least for the day, and we've seen some fantastic games, some fantastic series this today as a whole. Just some incredibly high-level moments of Hearthstone, some great reads, but this series in particular, both players acquitting themselves very, very well, and it's Tarei getting himself on the board.
Yeah, and we've got plenty more Hearthstone coming right up.